Welcome back to Lorehammer. I'm your host, Mark, and today we're talking about the war bosses of all war bosses, Gork and Mork. And joining me today, we got my good friends. We got Gerald. Hey.
Hello, you little homies. Who's ready for a good crumpet tonight?
Fuck, Graka snuck back in here. Okay, we got Graka. Welcome, welcome. We also got Brody.
Don't you mean the war boss, Bro Gorkly? That's me.
Bro Gorkly. All right. Yes. I got all the orcs here. Great. They're multiplying by the minute. I'm sure I'll whip out many orc voices throughout this episode. It's going to be a fun one. Orc episodes are always the best. And like I said, we're talking about, the best and the meanest and the greenest orcs, Gork and Mork. So what could go wrong?
Nothing.
Before we get to that, we'll do a quick housekeeping. Our Discord, it's been a lot of fun. We got Sunday night movie nights. If you want to come watch movies with people, there's Sunday night movie nights. They just kind of watch sci-fi closely associated with 40K stuff typically. But yeah, they have a lot of fun in there. So go check out our Discord and get involved with what's going on.
And if you'd like to support the show, please join our Patreon. Join the Imperial Tide because God Emperor Mark needs you to join. For $2.50 per month, you get ad-free versions of the show on Spotify, and for $5, you get access to the live stream, where you get to see our lovely faces and all of our orc voices in a split.
You get to see the orc voices.
You get to see the orc voices in action. Whoa!
Now maybe that's a drinking game. If somebody doesn't do WAAAGH, they have to drink. Or maybe if you do WAAAGH, you always drink. But then we're going to be all sloshed by the end of the episode. So just be glad we're drinking tea. Gerald's drinking something else, and I'm just drinking water.
Tea,
Cool. Well, this episode, we
tea.
got a fun one planned. We got a lot of speculation in this episode, I'm gonna call it. I didn't have a lot of information to work with, but I had a lot of fun concepts I wanted to kind of build out and expand. Gork and Mork, they're chaos gods, or warp entities, we'll start off by calling them. And throughout this episode, we're going to kind of almost see where they're different from other gods, what makes them special. We're going to talk about their realm. We're going to theorize, do orcs have a sacred number, perhaps? Maybe their sacred mark, sacred color. What does their realm in the warp look like? I know that actually is a real thing, but, we're going to talk about a couple other things from demons that, what would they look like? That could be pretty cool to see some Gork and Mork demons. Maybe Tuska the demon killer is a demon of Gork and Mork, perhaps. But we'll get to that. Whole lot of cool and fun. Very speculative. Very like I said, we're doing a warp episode, and then we're doing an episode about Gork and Mork where they're not telling you much because they're busy fighting.
Yeah.
Let's start off this episode. And we'll start off with a little overview of who Gork and Mork, the green-skinned gods, are. And Graka and Bro Gorkly are gonna help me out here and teach me a little bit.
We
in
can go with Brorkly if that's gonna work better.
Brorkly
that might work better.
I like the name Brorkly. It has a bit of ring to it.
There you go.
I'll take it up from here, Mark. Hello, you little homies. This is your favorite war boss, Graka. I'm here with Golden from Mark's permission, along with my other counterpart, Brorkly. And we've got a special episode for you tonight.
War boss Brorkly and Graka here. We're going to talk about the bestest in the gods in the warp. That's right. We're talking about the most brutally cunning, the most cunningly brutal. We're going to talk about Gork and Mork.
Yeah, you guys are gonna kill your voice. I'm glad I'm not doing a lot of orc voices this time, but it's fucking nice to listen to.
This is why we got a lot of grog on hand.
Gork and Mork are the twin gods of the orcs, embodying the raw power, brutality, and unstoppable momentum of the greenskin race. Though often mentioned together, orcs insist they are distinct. Gork is brutally cunning, striking with overwhelming force when least expected, while Mork is cunningly brutal, tricking foes before smashing them apart. Unlike the Chaos Gods, whose existence is tied to the warp, Gork and Mork are manifestations of Orks' collective belief, fueled by the sheer psychic energy of the WAAAGH. This makes them uniquely powerful, as their strength grows alongside the Ork race itself. Orks do not whisper their gods in a traditional sense, or worship, their gods in a traditional sense. Rather, they live in their image, constantly fighting, conquering, and growing stronger, all in the name of Gork and Mork. The influence Gork and Mork extends beyond mere superstition. Many Ork Weirdbear boys claim to receive visions of direct inspiration from them, channeling their divine energy to unleash devastating psychic attacks. Some Orks believe their gods exist in the Great Green, a mythical realm of endless battle where the greatest warriors continue to fight after death. The legendary Ork warboss Gazkil Magork Thraka is often called the prophet of Gork and Mork, claiming to receive divine guidance from them in his conquest of the galaxy. While scholars of the Imperium dismiss the Orks as mere superstitious, Ork gods as mere superstition, the undeniable reality is that the Orks fight harder, grow stronger, and become nearly unstoppable when they believe Gork and Mork are watching. Whether they are true deities or simply an extension of Orks' will, their power is felt wherever WAAAGHs arise. And then a fun quote here from Warboss Killboss. Warlord Killboss. A title and a title for a name. Very perfect. Sticks and stones break my bones, but Mork will kick your teeth in, you bugger. Yeah, turn those volumes down. Always warned of a quote before so people can turn it down, but fucking fun quote there. Yeah, Gork and Mork, or the chaos, or not the chaos gods, they're just warp gods. But I will have one kind of quick thought about them in, we're going to learn about how they differ a lot, but one thing that kind of already differs is where the chaos gods are manifestations particularly of emotions, Gork and Mork are manifestations of belief. And that will play out a lot through this episode, but that's a kind of key thing to keep in the back of your mind. An emotion and a belief is a very different thing. So what causes it and the outcomes kind of then change.
Yeah, I think it's interesting that a lot of the emotion of the Orks, because it's not even belief, it's that because they already know that they exist. Like, it's kind of like that. Some mech boys already have mech things in their minds. Every Ork already knows that Gork and Mork exist.
Yeah.
Right. So it's not a belief thing. It is almost like a feeling, and yeah, it's definitely interesting to see how that is. Also, I love the idea of the Great Green because it's just Valhalla for Orks.
I'm glad you said that. I was thinking the exact same thing.
Right?
Like, if there are space wolves that believe in like their version of Valhalla, they're gonna have a good time fighting in the Great Green with all the dead Orks.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah, like all the other Chaos Gods realms kind of suck, and you probably don't want to go there. We just did Slaanesh, and while it was fun walking through his excesses, and I fell many, many times, also, you don't want to do that every weekend. With Gork and Mork and the Great Green, you're just drinking and fighting, and then you recover the next day and do it again. It's a great time.
I'm glad I was not on for that episode.
Right.
So we're going to unpack these gods a lot more. We're going to start with Gork, who is, pretty known for being brutally cunning, but I'll leave it up to everyone at the end of the episode. And definitely the Orks in the house can take it from here. They'll know more than me.
All right. I think I'm going to take over from here. Gork, brutally cunning. Oi, listen up, you gits. Gork, that's me. I's the one what gets things done by smashing them good and proper. I'm all about that brute strength and brutal cunning. If you think you're ever going to outsmart me, well, you're in for a world of hurt. I'll hit some hard when they ain't even expecting it. Boom! You wouldn't know what hit you. I don't mess around with no fancy tricks. I just charge in, wreck 'em, and leave 'em laying on the floor. I ain't no use sitting around working out schemes. I'll smash fists, think later. I'm Gork, the big bruiser, and I ain't got time for the little things. When the war is in full swing, it's all about getting into fight and causing some pain. And the stronger the greenskins get, the more power I got. I ain't a go like them chaos gets. Nah, I'm something more. I'm the embodiment of destruction, and as long as Orks is smashing things, I get stronger and stronger.
Cool.
Gork
Fucking
is one
cool.
of the twin gods of the Orks. Let me How long before Gerald loses his voice tonight? Place your bets, everybody.
Yeah.
I'm going with
Gork,
pretty quickly.
you're probably right. Gork is one of the twin gods of the Orks, embodying their raw, unrelenting aggression and primal desire for destruction. Orks describe Gork as brutally cunning, meaning he strikes with overwhelming, unstoppable force, but always with an instinctive awareness of how best to crush his enemies. Unlike his counterpart Mork, who enjoys trickery, Gork is direct and unsubtle, favoring massive earth-shaking blows that leave nothing but devastation in their wake. Orks, who are naturally aggressive, straightforward, and focused on overwhelming strength, often claim to be favored by Gork. Many of the greatest Ork warbosses, including Gazkur Magruk Thraka, see themselves as chosen warriors of Gork, channeling his unstoppable might into their wars. Among Ork society, those who fight in the thick of battle revel in hand-to-hand combat and favor sheer brutality. Over tactics tend to be seen as more Gorky than Morky. The influence of Gork extends beyond mere superstition. Many Orks believe that his power manifests through the sheer force of their collective belief. When an Ork charges into battle, swinging a massive power claw or roaring into the fray, it is said that Gork is with him, lending his strength to crush anything in his path. Some weird boys claim to receive visions of Gork, depicting him as a massive green-skinned behemoth with fists like meteors, smashing entire planets apart. His favor is often sought before battle, with Orks bashing their heads together, roaring, and engaging in violent pre-fight brawls to get properly gorked up before a fight. Ork battle chants, war drums, and even their crude banners reflect their belief in Gork as the ultimate symbol of unyielding, direct warfare. Unlike human gods who demand worship in the form of prayer or sacrifice, Gork is honored through violence. Orks simply fight, and that is enough to keep his power growing. Despite his seemingly simple nature, Gork is not mindless. He is brutally cunning, meaning he knows how to strike where it hurts most, using overwhelming force in a way that is both effective and devastating. Ork tactics often reflect this mindset. While they may appear as an unruly horde charging headlong into battle, there is an instinctive awareness of where and when to hit. Gork's aspect is particularly favored by warbosses and knobs who lead from the front, using sheer power to establish dominance and crush anything that opposes them. Even the most savage of Orks, from hulking mega knobs to frenzied scar boys, see Gork as their guiding force, the ultimate expression of what it means to be Orky. Whether he exists as a true god, a warp entity, or simply the psychic echo of the Ork's own warlike nature, his influence is undeniable. Wherever Orks gather for battle, Gork is always there, looming over them with an approving, toothy grin.
Cool.
Hell yeah, brother.
And I would like to take a one quick dip into Warhammer Fantasy, and that one of the rules for the Orks there is they make a prayer to, I think it's Gork, and you can ask him to stomp your enemies, and that is literally what he does. A giant foot just comes out and smashes the enemy's minis on the board.
Yeah, I think they have a similar rule in 40K for that for sure.
Mm-hmm.
There used to be even like a endless spell model that was a great big foot that was, and you would paint it green, and it was the foot of Gork.
That's sweet. That's so cool.
Yeah, I love it. But
yeah, so this episode we are gonna learn a lot, and honestly, the only real canon in this episode is in this line here. Everything else is take with a fucking grain of salt, especially for like the theory parts. But I'm going to read the line again that I think is the big takeaway, because it really explains him a lot. Whether he exists as a true god, a warp entity, or simply a psychic echo of all the orcs' own warlike nature, his influence is undeniable. Wherever the orcs gather for battle, Gork is always there, looming over them with an approving, toothy grin. Like, we don't know what Gork is. Gork might not even technically exist. The orcs think he exists, and the orcs gain more power from it. But, like, that's just orcs doing weird orc stuff. That's not a proven, like, science, you know?
Okay, here's a real question. Has anybody ever seen Gork and Mork?
That's not an orc.
Like, you know, yeah, that's not an orc, because we have Thraka, who's talked to Gork and Mork, who has visions of them and stuff, and has been told what to do. So they're definitely like something is definitely taught to Thraka.
Yeah, but like here's my thing. So we had gone through some of the other like chaos gods like Nurgle and Slaanesh and whatnot. Has anybody ever actually seen Nurgle? Can we prove Nurgle's real? Can we prove that real God is real? No, that's the whole thing, right? They're gods, they're unknowable. So
Sure.
it's kind of like there is. It's like talking with anything. Like, is God real? Is other God real? Is Gork real? Is Mork real? Like it's all subjective to the orc.
Yeah. Lowercase g, uppercase G don't matter really to them ultimately.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I'd like to bring up a point that you made earlier, Brody, is you're talking about the orcs' power of belief. Now, they have this thing where whatever they believe gets willed into existence. And then, of course, we also know that anything from the warp is born of whatever emotions that we put into it. So what if it was just like the orcs' power of belief that birthed Gork and Mork into existence? Because remember, two gods are better than one, because one has to have another one to fight. And then it just creates that feedback loop of, okay, Gork and Mork are real now. They know because they believe they're real. And so it's just, it's a vicious cycle. Yeah. Well, not a vicious cycle to them, but you know what I mean.
Yeah.
A delicious cycle.
They love the vicious cycle.
Yeah.
Yes.
There's some even theories, perhaps, maybe not orcs, but some smart imperial scholar, he thinks maybe the old ones, the original corks that were made, could potentially be Gork and Mork that escaped into the warp or the webway, and then kind of leaked into the warp, or however that happened. But maybe they're corks.
That would be very interesting, because imagine the old ones basically being like we're about to die. All of our races that we've created are about to have some real issues. Let's maybe did they create Gork and Mork, take two of the best generals and put them in the warp and make them these entities and make them everything else is kind of just as is, right? It just falls down the line.
Maybe they made them as part of it. Maybe they made the Eldar pantheon as well. They kind of almost fall in that same category of unknown of what they really are. Maybe they were created, or maybe they were just the original Quarks, just like the Eldar were the firstborn Eldari gods or whatever, the very old ones. But we don't know. So, like I said, it's going to be fun because we know Gork is brutally cunning, and we know Mork is cunningly brutal, and we don't know what they are.
I'll take the theory one step further.
Yeah.
Now, this is kind of more tapping into older lore, but we know how originally the Primarchs were meant to just be just really good generals for the Imperium, back in the Horus Heresy. What if it was just the best orcs or the best Krorks that just created it, that just were just so good, all these legends were just made around it, and that's what got morphed into Gork and Mork. Just like how if the Primarchs were meant to be just like the best generals, and then they got elevated to this demigod status. What's to say that can't be done for Gork and Mork?
Yeah, and there's like a power in like mythology and storytelling and stuff, and then that story gets passed over countless generations of orc fungi, just growing. The legend grows and gains more power each time it's spoken and reverence.
That's some validation for you in your Rick Priestley interview. Wow, that was bad. Fix that in post, please.
There you go. That's the other thing too. Like, they're fungi. Guess what? Fungi have mycelium. Mycelium growing everything, and it's just the interconnectivity through the warp. It's just
super
a bunch
connected.
of mushrooms everywhere.
It's all shrooms.
It's all shrooms. You just find out that Warhammer 40K is just one bad shroom trip for somebody. Like, they're just
yeah, it could be
amazing.
Yeah,
But now it's kind of like one of those things, right? You've heard about Gork and he's all brutally cunning. You want to talk about cunningly brutal now?
What's the difference? Lay it on me.
You thought Gork was the only one who knows how to deal pain, eh? Well, let me tell you, Mork's the real mastermind here. While Gork's busy bashing heads in, I'm the one that's got up behind you, plays tricks on your mind. It's that one who got you thinking you're safe, only to have me whack you upside the head when you least expect it. It's all about cunning, lad, and in my book, it's better to be tricky and smash 'em from the shadows than just rush in all the time. You see, I gets 'em all riled up, let 'em think they's got the upper hand, and crack, I leave 'em in pieces. I ain't that good at smashing, that's Gork, but I'm good at smart or messing with enemies and breaking them down in the way ain't never seen coming. The orcs know it too. When they believe in me, they get tricky and sneaky and deadly, just like me. And it's through all the fighting. That's how we orcs get stronger. Because the stronger we get, the stronger we make Gork and me, Mork. Now, I ain't no walk god like corn. I ain't that rest. But when the WAAAGH's going off and the great green spinning, well, you can feel us both there, keeping things rolling proper like.
The Great Green is such an excellent fucking title, moniker, whatever, location
Love
word.
it.
Yeah.
Fantastic. Man, I like, for some reason, I started going Australian with my orc accent, and it messed me up. I was like reading and I was like, am I Australian right now? All right. After that, I need to sip of the Wawa, the tea. All right. Mork is the other half of the orc pantheon, representing the sly, devious, and unpredictable side of the Greenskinned psyche. Unlike Gork, who's brutally cunning, Mork is cunningly brutal, meaning he fights with deception, ambushes, and misdirection before delivering a crushing blow. If Gork is a massive power claw smashing through an enemy line, Mork is the cunning git who waits for the right moment, then strikes from the shadows with devastating force. This makes him the favored god of orcs who prefer tactics, trickery, and deception. While all orcs love a good fight, those who employ ambushes, traps, and sneaky attacks tend to view themselves as more in tune with Mork's will. Commandos, freebooters, and particularly wily warbosses often claim to have Mork's favor, using their intelligence and unpredictability to outthink and outmaneuver their foes before smashing them into the dirt. Mork's influence is seen in the orc's natural cunning, which often surprises other races who assume them to be mindless brutes. Orcs may seem reckless, but they instinctively understand when to fight, when to run, and when to use guile to to get an advantage. Mork's presence is especially strong among weird boys, whose strange, unpredictable psychic powers are often attributed to his mischievous nature. Some orcs believe that Mork enjoys watching the confusion of his enemies, delighting in the chaos caused by unexpected tactics and dirty tricks. Stories of Mork's feats describe him outwitting enemies in grand, ridiculous ways, like leading a rival warband into a canyon, collapsing the walls on them, then jumping down to stomp on the survivors.
Perfect.
While all orcs have an appreciation for destruction, Morky orcs understand that sometimes hitting an enemy when they least expect it is far more satisfying than a head-on charge. Mork's presence in orc culture extends to their technology and battle strategies. The mech boys who create bizarre but devastatingly effective war machines are often thought to be guided by Mork's inspiration. The same applies to orc freebooters and flashgits, who use their cunning to get the best loot, biggest guns, and sneakiest advantages over their rivals. Even orc warbands led by overwhelmingly gorky warbosses still employ Mork's tactics when needed. After all, a good fight is better than when it lasts longer. And what better way to ensure that than by keeping the enemy confused, scared, and always off balance? While Gork represents raw power, Mork represents the intelligence and strategy that allows orcs to be more than just mindless killers. Together, they form the perfect embodiment of the orc way of life, ensuring that no matter how orcs fight, brutally cunning or cunningly brutal, they are always victorious in the end.
Wah!
Wah!
Wah.
Wah!
Wah.
Yeah,
For
cool. One
some
about
reason, that's right. I was like, for some reason, I've always identified with Mork. Personally, I really like Mork. I was going to ask you to make me Mork in the episode, Mark. So thank you for that. Like I'm a big guy. Like most people, like Mark knows, he's met me in person and everything like that. He knows I'm a 6 foot 300 pounder. Like I'm a big guy. Played football and rugby and everything like that. But I've always wanted to be a little sneaky guy. Like I've always wanted to be a little sneaky guy. And I think Mork's
Look
just
at him on his tiptoes over there.
exactly right. So, but yeah, I've always I've loved that idea of of commandos and freebooters and stuff like that. In every Warhammer book or Warhammer story that I've ever read where it involves commandos, it's my favorite of the orcs.
Cool. Yeah.
Very nice.
Yeah,
very
it's
nice.
it's funny that that's kind of the vibe you get, because I get that often too. Like myself, when I'm picturing orcs, is that stealthy nature of Gork, or sorry, of Mork, and yeah, it's cool. You got all those commandos and stuff, but I wonder how many of them are just using tactics and not even stealth at all, and everyone else is just like them sneaking around using their brain. They almost look down a little bit by the other style of orcs, but whatever.
It's making me think of
One of
the
the,
gif from
go ahead there.
Emperor's New. It's making me think of that gif from Emperor's New Groove where Kronk is just sneaking around the palace and then he just backs himself up against the wall. He's like, "Ah," and then two dudes just walking by him, look at him, just shrug, and then walk away.
Exactly,
Yeah.
exactly. So I was just reading recently Baneblade, the novel, and the orc war boss is he's dressed up as a general, like a human general, and he has lieutenants and everything, and it's all ambushes and using proper force for the enemy and everything like that, and really very tactful. And I was like, but he's still huge. They explain how big he is, and he's supposed to be like 10 meters tall. Like he's supposed to be just crazy big guy, and
Yeah.
this little tiny general's hat on him, and he's just and he's got a pipe, everything. And I just thought it was hilarious because he's very Morky, because he's using tactics and he's using all of these ambush attacks to lure the humans in and then take all their tanks and everything like that. I just thought that was awesome, and I was like, so many manifestations of
Yes.
what Mork can be.
Yeah. Yeah, it's funny. It's like, Orc war boss is like, use the anti-tank rounds on the tanks. And it's like all of a sudden they're like, wow, that's a brilliant Mork war boss. Just the smartest tactician around. No one's ever thought of this idea. Prophet of Mork.
Yeah, they only have fragmentation rounds, but they believe that they're high explosive and armor piercing, so they are.
They just, yeah.
You got the anti-tank rounds, but that's a paper clip and a slingshot. I swear it's an anti-tank round. Boom.
Yeah, exactly.
Huh.
Beautiful.
Gork and Mork, they're different but the same. They're two sides of the same coin. How else do you describe them being different? But one thing that's kind of interesting that I thought was in fantasy and AOS, Gork and Mork, while different, they also have a combined manifestation. And I'm not an AOS or fantasy player, so I'm not like fully versed in how Gorka Morka works. But it's a cool concept I wanted to talk about and like get you guys' vibe if it should almost be transferred over into 40K as well, or if that's just, not everything needs to be in both. But yeah, let's talk about Gorka Morka. And another quote for you. Some war bosses are clever. Some are strong. I'm both. So that's Warboss Thraka. So Gorka Morka is basically the concept of both gods in one. So in Warhammer Fantasy and Age of Sigmar, Gork and Mork is the singular combined form of Gork and Mork, a great and mighty god of destruction worshipped by the Greenskins as the ultimate expressions of their warlike nature. In Age of Sigmar, he is seen as an unpredictable and primal force, embodying both brutal strength and cunning trickery. Orks, Grots, and other green-skinned creatures believes that Gorka Morka once roamed freely, smashing everything in his path, but eventually split into his two aspects, Gork and Mork, so he could fight himself for all eternity. This duality defines his nature. He is both an unrelenting god of war and a sneaky trickster, always looking for a bigger and better fight. His followers, especially the Iron Jaws and Bone Splitters, strive to emulate his power, seeking endless battle in his name. So pretty cool. Kind of backstory, almost like a birth of Gork and Mork, way more refined and dialed in than what we've talked about in this episode. But then also, yeah, like this concept of them together and potentially maybe sometimes they're together, sometimes they're apart. Kind of interesting. Gerald, I know you're more into fantasy. Is that a good kind of description of it?
That's pretty succinct. We haven't delved too much into like the Gork and Morka side of it, but it's kind of touched up on. Hashtag listen to the Grimlore episode on Orks. Anyways, I'll show for that more later. But yeah, that's pretty succinct because a lot of what the Orks do in fantasy translates over to 40K. There's the WAAAGH, there's the Krumpen, there's your Grots, you Gits, all that stuff. There's Gork and Mork, Gorka Morka. So yeah, it all translates over pretty well. I was laughing to myself a minute ago because that just made me think of like Captain Planet with like, with all your powers combined, you get Gorka Morka.
It's funny that you say that because in 40K, the only reference really, actually there's a couple, but the main reference to Gorka Morka is a board game that they came out with, and it's the story of the planet Gorka Morka. So I wonder while we go through if that's, what'd you say, Captain Planet was your thing?
Yeah, like that old 90s cartoon, Captain Planet. Yeah.
Okay, we'll see if it collides here. So yeah, in Warhammer 40K, if we took the idea of Gorka Morka, it's less about a singular entity and more about a catch-all term used when orcs don't bother to distinguish between the gods. Some believe orcs in that moments of the Great WAAAGH energy, Gork and Mork momentarily fuse into one, acting as a united force of war and destruction. Others see the term as just a convenient way to refer the gods without overthinking it. After all, too much thinking ain't very orky. While most orcs maintain the distinction between Gork's brutal, cunning nature and Mork's cunning brutality, the term Gorka Morka sometimes refers to surfaces when discussing particularly massive WAAAGHs, legendary war bosses, and great battles that feel like the work of both gods at once. Some orcs even claim that when Gazkill Thraka fights, he channels the power of Gork and Mork itself, becoming their chosen vessel of destruction. So let's ask the old resident orc war bosses, Gork and Mork, what do you think of this idea and bring it into 40K?
Well, there's been a lot of mention of Gazkill Thraka. So I'm going to tell you what Warboss Cracker thinks. Gork and Mork, I like the sound of it. It's like me, but bigger, badder, and meaner. If you ask me, Gork and Mork is a big old war machine, and that's exactly what the orcs need. Get a big, ugly, stomping thing that does all the bashing and smashing for you, and what better way to do it than making it all Gork and Mork sized? I reckon Gork and Mork is just me, but it's all about being even more brutal, knocking stuff over, and crushing enemies underfoot. That's how we orcs roll, and Gork and Mork is the perfect way to keep the war rolling strong.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Muted.
Brody, you're muted.
I was muted, wasn't I? Oh no. All right. I got me a few thoughts on Gork and Mork too. It's a clever idea, right? Get a big sneaky thing that works as a tool of trickery and distraction, all rolled into one. Gork's brute strength and my sneaky tricks all in one. Gork and Mork's got it all. And when it's out in the field, it's sure to confuse and crush the enemies. A big old trick and smasher machine. Brilliant, just the way I'd do it. Let them think they got the upper hand and then bam, smash them good.
Yeah, cool. So they kind of both like the idea. Anytime you approach an orc, I think with like, hey, here's a way to destroy more things. Are you on board? I think they typically like it.
Sorry, I just had you guys. It muted you guys on me for some reason. My computer messed up. I didn't hear anything.
Well, we'll carry on. What do you guys kind of think about Gork and Morka in 40K? Is this kind of a term that should almost be brought over? And yeah, basically the concept is not. It could be one of two ways. Either as that catch-all term where you're just like, Gork and Morka, and you're just, it's both combined, but not really. Or the other literal way of taking it where it actually is like this combined moment of fusion during war.
I think it could be a little bit of both. I like the idea of bringing it over to 40K. I think it could be a little bit of both. Like every orc has a bit of Mork and a bit of Gork. Yes, sometimes it fluctuates. Like today I'm feeling very Gorky, and other days I feel very Morky.
Yeah.
So I think it's kind
Which
of
orc will I be?
Yeah, which orc will I be today? And every orc is just continually singing, just the three of us. It's just me, Gork, and Mork the whole time. So, but yeah, so I think it's an idea. I don't know, because I don't know about AOS or anything when it comes or old world when it comes to. Were they are they still two separate gods, but like two separate beings, but like one god? Or are they like a big thing with four arms and two orc heads and they're trying to just walk around and smash everything? I like that idea personally. I think having the orc god be one brutally cunning and one cunningly brutal head, and they're both just yapping at each other constantly, trying to convince each other that they're wrong.
Yeah.
I think that's an idea.
Scraps.
Yeah.
Oh man.
Yeah, I like it. I think it has a spot for it for sure. It just adds another little bit to kind of orc culture and just another fun little term that they use that ultimately, they don't really know what it means. They don't really fucking care what it means. That's the whole point of this catch-all term.
What if it started as a catch-all term from non-orc enemies, and the orcs catch on to it? So that's what leads to that power of belief.
Oh
Gotta love the
God.
orc. Gotta love the meme lore we have going on here. And then through the orcs' power of belief, that's what creates Gork and Mork. By your powers combined.
And now we have 3 distinct orc green-skinned gods.
Or I just like to see that Gork and Mork just magically fuse together, like what Brody's talking about, and now one head's bitching at the other.
I think that would be amazing. Personally,
they
I
just
want that.
And then there is
Yeah,
just
like-
punching itself in the gut. It's like, stop
Yeah,
punching
you know-
yourself. Stop punching yourself.
Oh, that's so funny. Like if Gork and Mork are supposed to be representations of kind of the orcs' psyche, their belief, their emotions, you know, a little bit of all of that. All orcs do is fight each other and take over their war boss position. Like it just, yeah, that would be the perfect kind of representation. You don't go to it like the thing about Gork and Mork, you don't go to it and pray for strength. You just go be strong. You know, they're not that kind of god, so they can be busy fighting themselves all day long, and like that's their vibe, and that's what gives them power. That's what gives orcs inspiration.
And that's why Gork and Mork is the best. Because why only believe in one god when that other god needs when one god needs another god to fight?
Gork and Mork. Why have one when you can have 2? I love it.
2 gods for the price of 1.
You know. Get your gods here.
Bring out
2
your
gods.
gods. Bring out your
Yeah, bring out
gods.
your gods. God.
No, those are the Eldar gods. You do that one for.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. So the one reference I could find, like I said, was the Gorka Morka board game and its expansions. It had 3 expansions from 1997. But basically, this game was based on the planet Angelus, and Angelus was a dead world and an ancient Necron tomb world that later became known for its orc population, or as later became known to its orc population as Gorka Morka. Named Angelus on the star charts of the Imperium of Man, the barren world was surveyed by the Adeptus Mechanicus exploration vessel Eternal Vigilance in 344 to 345 M35 when an orc-inhibited Space Hulk crashed into it, creating a massive canyon dubbed the Skid by the Orks and irradiating the landscape of the surrounding area. The affected area included a base station of the Imperial Survey Team, who had been investigating the planet's complex Necron-Tur pyramid structures and attempting to determine the reason for the apparent lack of any living organisms on the world, right down to the cellular level. This lack of a biosphere suggested that the world's biosphere had been eradicated by artificial means. The surviving orcs set about building new starships to leave the planet and rejoin their WAAAGH. Unfortunately, the orcs' rivalries broke out over which orc god the ship resembled, and the construction process slowed to dramatically as the 2 different Greenskinned religious factions fought for resources and territory. The vessel was eventually destroyed in the fighting. After the destruction of the great ship, both sides decided to band together and name the vessel Gorka Morka, meaning that it could look like either orc gods, Gork or Mork. As orcs have a somewhat limited vocabulary, this also became the new Greenskin name for the planet. But yeah, that pretty much sums it up. You know, like the gods fight. You name a ship after them. They fight and wreck the ship. You know, and then they decide to band together and name the planets after the gods. It's a pretty classic story. I love it.
Just like everything is a squig, everything on the planet is Gorka Morka.
Yeah, exactly.
And I love one of the
That's nice.
commenters here from Plain Jane. Inside each of us are 2 orcs.
Yeah. Yeah. Now, this was something that I had going on too when, you know, we're going to move to the next little section of sacred marks, numbers, and colors. When going through the Chaos Gods, you know, we all know Khorne's sacred number is 8, and we know, the marks, we all know kind of what they look like. They're pretty distinct marks. So I kind of thought, what do those look like in terms of Gork and Mork, if they even have such things? Like, do Gork and Mork even have a number? So yeah, we're going to kind of discuss those three kind of things.
Sound good.
Yeah. The Orks have no unified written theology, but they often depict Gork and Mork using crude symbols that reflect their brutal and cunning natures. The most common mark of Gork is a massive open-toothed maw, or a clenched power claw, symbolizing his relentless smashing force. In contrast, Mork's mark, thanks a lot for the tongue twister there, is often a single glaring eye or a jagged, grinning face, representing his trickery and ability to strike when least expected. Ork glyphs sometimes feature twin, overlapping fists, one clenched tightly for Gork, the other one slightly open, as if ready to feint or swipe for Mork. These symbols appear on Ork banners, tattoos, and war machines, each war boss favoring the mark of the god they feel best represents their battle style. Some weird boys claim to receive visions of these marks glowing in the warp, proof that the Ork gods are watching over their endless WAAAGH.
Yeah, the orc mark is a fun thing because every time another orc sees that orc mark, he's like, wow, that's a nice tattoo of Gork. And of course, the orc's like, no, this is Mork. And then they get into a rumble right there, pleasing the gods, only further enhancing their sacred mark.
Exactly. It's just feeding into all of the religious banter within the 40K.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, no, it's funny. The orcs, it's like, yeah, okay, this guy, his fist is closed, and this guy's still making a fist at you, but it's slightly open. Like, and I'm supposed, how open is too open? Like, it's not an exact science, I'm sure. I'm just sure of it.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Just, yeah. How
Right
open
there.
is too open? I don't. Is it too much?
Oh, that's a fighting fist.
This is
You're
how
trying
I
to
fight
get
now.
You want a good crumpet now?
Yeah, I fight with my fingers slightly bent and my palms open, and I'm just like, this is my Mork style fighting.
Yeah, like a bear almost.
This is a big bear.
Yeah.
Imagine an orc just doing that and then trying to do the crane from Karate Kid.
Oh, with their fucking weird spine, like their ass out spine. Like, oh my god. What have you done?
It's amazing. Just everybody picture it.
Yeah, that's
man.
fucking cool.
Picture it.
Yeah, that the mark is pretty easy to get on board with. There's not too much speculation there. They use glyphs already. But to kind of narrow it in and be a little more specific, that kind of gets speculative. As for the sacred number, this is all my thought on this one. Like we don't have any idea. There's no even mention to orcs caring about numbers. No mention to orcs even knowing what numbers are. But yeah, let's see what happens.
Orcs are not known for their mathematical precision, but they do hold certain numbers in superstitious regard, and some orc clans whisper of sacred numbers tied to Gork and Mork. The number 2 is often associated with them, as they are twin gods who mirror and rival each other constantly. Orcs sometimes arrange battle lines or organize warbands in pairs, believing that 2 strong fighters together, one brutally cunning and the other cunningly brutal, will always lead to victory. Some orcs also believe that the number 11 has special significance, as it resembles 2 towering, unstoppable figures standing side by side. While these ideas are not universal among the Greenskins, they occasionally manifest in orc culture in strange ways, such as twin warbosses ruling over a WAAAGH, or superstitions about never fighting alone, lest one fall out of favor with the gods.
Yeah. Yeah, like it just kind of makes sense. One of their titles is the twin gods too. So the sacred number just 2. And like we kind of said at the end there, you almost never see an orc boy alone. If you see an orc boy alone, that's a sad boy. Like he wants to be with a bunch of boys. He wants to be surrounded. I think on tabletop they do 32 boys, which is 4 times 8, Korn's number times 4. I don't know. Who do we give power to? A little bit of that. I'm not as sold on that one. That one, you need a guy like Colin to unravel that kind of number mystery on you.
Colin, I have not. So I listened to one of the Colin episodes from way back when the other day, and I was just like, oh, I forgot how much I love this.
Yeah.
I
I'll
love
have
his
to reach
tangents
out
on
to him.
numbers.
Yeah, he needs to do a number tangent right here for me. I
Mhm.
had it all thought out. I had the numbers. I just didn't know how. I didn't have the passion. Because
Did you know the significance of 32 in the Orc calendar? Well, every day has 32 months. So,
oh god,
and on the 32nd day, the 32nd day, the second day is the 2 twin gods of the 30th month, and in the calendar year, there's 6 months divided by 2. Oh my god, like it's
Yeah.
perfect. It's what we need.
We're not
yeah, I
talking
said
about
passion,
this.
but yeah, autism is maybe the power there.
Oh, man.
Needs more tism.
A little bit.
This talk about 11 and then Seth's comment in the chat made me think of the of the meme about the Lehman Russ, where he goes to the Emperor and says, "Haha, I knocked out the 11th Legion." Russ, that's 2 1s. That's supposed to be the 2nd Legion. Oh, give me just 1 second. Okay, knocked out the 2nd Legion.
Shit.
Love it.
Yeah, like that concept exactly comes back to the Orks. Is it twin gods? Is it 2? Is it 11? Is it 1? Like fucking Orks. But I do think like stuff like that matters though in the warp, like numbers, colors, marks, names. If you know the name of a true demon's name or whatever. All those things like have that power in the warp. So kind of fun to speculate there. And the last thing, this one, once again, while it is speculation, it's a pretty obvious one. If Korn's color is red, what color do the Orks rock?
Green.
Green's
Gotta
the
be
best. Yeah. In Ork belief, green is more than just their skin tone. It is the best and most powerful color in the galaxy. Orks naturally associate green with their gods, believing that the greener something is, the stronger it must be. This extends to their technology, their war paint, and even their psychic energy. As Ork weird boys tap into the great green power of the WAAAGH, however, some Orks argue that different shades of green align more with either Gork or Mork. Deep dark green is often associated with Gork, representing raw, unshakable strength, while a bright, almost glowing green is linked to Mork, reflecting his unpredictable and electric cunning. Regardless of these distinctions, one thing remains certain: green is best. And with the Orcs' belief, the Orcs' belief in this is the only reinforces the god's presence in the warp. There is one piece of artwork done by GW, and you'll see it in Orc codexes often, and it is of Gork and Mork, and it's a kind of like a flaming warp fire blue Orc skull next to a flaming yellow warp fire blue. So it's 2 skulls. They pretty much look the same, but one is red and one is blue. And yeah, they represent Gork and Mork. I was thinking about the colors and what they mean. Red is for fast, and blue is lucky. It doesn't quite represent Gork and Mork effectively, Like if black was the one god, then you could be like, okay, black, that's Goth, that's tough, that's Gork. Like, okay, you can draw those lines that way. So I got a little creative with the color wheel, as us painters often do, and I thought, well, what colors make green? Well, yellow and blue. In that artwork, that red Gork, there's touches of yellow in there, so maybe it is yellow. But yellow is wealth, and shit, we're out of luck again. So neither one really matters, but there's some color theory for you. Like I said, the Orcs, they don't care about this. They just want to fight. They're not arguing over which colors really mean what. Like, they just know, and that's it. And if they're going to fight over it, it's actually a good thing.
Because at the end of the day, it just still feeds Gork and Mork.
Yeah.
I like Fuzz's comment. Sacred number for Gork and Mork is 00F00 as the hex code for 100% green.
Love it.
Buddy,
I was just looking at color codes today for stuff, so that's fantastic.
One more quick dip into Warhammer Fantasy. One quick tangent on that is there is such thing as a black orc, but don't be mistaken because he doesn't actually have black skin. He's just green, but very, very dark green. So they just call it a black orc. But as far as intelligence, they're supposed to be like on par with like a dwarf or a human. So make of that what you will. And now back to 40K.
The orc language is just so complicated, so much nuance in it,
You know, well, it's all done by glyph, right? So it's like it's not even like letters or anything. It's all just glyphs, like symbols. And so, like in the Caiaphas Cain novels, his adjutant that he has, like the Commissar Caiaphas Cain, he has an adjutant who speaks like, or sorry, not speaks orc, but can read orc. And so like he's like a Valhallan, so like he is used to seeing orc glyphs all the time because they're all over Valhalla, and so like he's able to actually like read it, understand what they mean. So like they're on like some distant planet, and he's like, "What does that mean?" He's like, "It means their base is that way," like or whatever. He's like, "And then we're going this way." So, yeah,
Oh man,
pretty cool.
And what do our resident orcs think of marks, numbers, and colors?
A sacred mark, a sacred number, a sacred color. I like the idea, but it ain't about marks and numbers. It's about the fight. But I'll tell you, if I had a mark, it'd be something big and brutal, like the smack of my fist to go over your skull. Numbers. Well, the orcs do big things and loud, but I reckon 11 sounds right. It's a number what's hard to ignore, like with punches. And as for a sacred color, well, green's the best, ain't it? Dark, savage green like me, raw and full of power. That's my color, and that's the orc color. Wow.
Well, marks, numbers, colors, well, they ain't bad, but I'd rather see 'em west with the enemy's head. My mark would be something snaky, maybe a wobbly zigzag line, confusing like my tricks. As a number, how about 7? It's a good number for dodging and outsmarting enemies. And a sacred color, bright green, like the shock of the unexpected. It's the color of sneakiness and surprises, just like me. Gork's big and loud, but I like to keep things clever and tricky.
I say, Broccoli, I think with the number 7, there's a big green slimer git named Nurgle. He might have a bone to pick with you. He's going to have a good crumping with you for sure.
I wants me a crumpet. I wants me to confuse him so bad he tips over on his little friggin' tippy toes that he's got. He's so fat and so big, won't be hard for that.
But I must say, you got to get used to the smell. Because he is quite the smelly git.
Ah, it's the worst.
Yeah, do
and
that
like,
voice very often.
not like you two, clearly hygienic orcs over there. So no smells, nothing.
No smells.
No, you got squigs eating up all the filth. Yeah.
Yeah. Squig
let's
mites
talk-
on Gork and Mork. It's just like eat all their dead skin.
Delicioso. Yeah. Why not? Fuck yeah.
The cleanest gods.
Now
are
you
Gork
don't
and
need to
Mork.
take a bath.
Perfect.
That's what you get. That's why
Dive
you have
into
that squig.
bat squig. Yeah, it just eats the flesh. Gross. That's disgusting. I love it. Perfect. All right, let's dive into the Great Green, and maybe let's let the orcs describe this to us and see what it looks like. What do you close when you close your green eyes? What do you picture?
All right. I'd like everyone in the chat to just sit down real quiet. Like, I know it's really hard to do because we're like a crumpin. But now, sit down, close your eyes, and just think. Think for 1 second of the Great Green. Oh, now we're talking. That's where the real power's at. The Great Green's the realm of strength and war. It's where all the best orcs go when they die. It's a place of endless battle, just how I like it. Smashing, bashing, and fighting all day long. It's all about pushing your strength to the limit and fighting till your last breath. When orcs believe in me, that's the power we get. The WAAAGH is pure power, pure and unstoppable, just like Gork. The Great Green's the place where we keep fighting. No matter what, always getting stronger.
The Great Green. I sees it a bit differently. It's more than just strength. It's all about that trickery and the madness of the fight. When you die, you end up in the Great Green. But it ain't all about brawn, no. It's about being smart and sneaky and always ready for that X move. That's where I thrive, in the chaos and unpredictability. Jesus Christ.
Yeah, your guys' poor voice.
Oh my god.
It's hard. It's so hard.
The
on
Great
voice.
Green's like a big battleground, but with a twist. You never know when something will catch you off guard. It's a place where my tricks and schemes will keep running wild, just how I likes it.
Nice. Either way, it sounds like this is paradise. Like we kind of said, like the other orc realm or God's realms don't seem very inviting, but this one's perfect if you're an orc.
If you're an orc, that's the kicker. I think.
Yeah. The Great Green is more than just a color to the orcs. It is a fundamental force of their existence, a vast and unknowable power that fuels their WAAAGH and binds them together in a shared psychic field. Orcs do not question why green is the strongest color. They simply know it to be true, and their unwavering belief in this idea only strengthens it further. Some orc weird boys speak of the Great Green as some kind of cosmic presence, an endless rolling storm of raw WAAAGH energy that crackles through the warp. They claim that the orcs gather in large enough numbers, their collective thoughts and emotion form a ripple in reality, a vast growing tide of green that shapes fate itself. This could explain why orc weapons and vehicles, despite being seemingly cobbled together from scrap, function in ways that defy logic. The orcs' belief in their own power manifests in reality, and the Great Green is an unforeseen force that makes it possible. To some orcs, the Great Green is not just an energy field, but an actual realm within the warp. Weird boys who experience powerful psychic vision sometimes claim they have glimpsed an endless battlefield stretching as far as the eye can see, bathed in an eerie green glow. This could be the orc afterlife, an eternal, never-ending WAAAGH where the strongest warbosses continue to fight, grow, and smash their enemies forever. Some greenskins believe that the greatest orcs who die in battle are absorbed into the Great Green, their spirits joining the WAAAGH, energy of the universe, adding their strength to the future conflicts. Whether this is an actual whether this is an actual warp realm or simply a myth passed down through orc legends is unclear, but it reinforces that orcs instinctively certainty that their way of life is eternal. The concept of the Great Green also ties into orc spirituality in a more practical way. Many orcs see the WAAAGH itself as a physical extension of their gods, Gork and Mork, and the Great Green as a force that carries their will. The bigger and more successful a WAAAGH becomes, the more it seems to gain a will of its own, as if the Great Green is guiding it towards destruction and conquest. Some warbosses claim to hear voices of Gork and Mork through the din of battle, pushing them to fight harder, crump better, and never stop. The orcs don't need priests or temples. Every battle is their shrine, and every fight is their prayer. In this way, the Great Green is not just an abstract concept, but an active and undeniable force in orc existence, fueling their endless drive for war and making them one of the most dangerous and unstoppable forces in the galaxy. Plain Jane asks, which came first, the Great Green or Gork and Mork? Like if we're talking chaos gods, how they kind of operate, and Gork and Mork isn't really a chaos god, as we said, but the other ones, their realms are just manifestations of their power. They're able to, gather enough power and energy in the warp that they can actually form and maintain a realm of their choosing. So if they operate in that same kind of vein, I'd say Gork and Mork came first.
And we pointed out before, or at least I've made mention before, anytime we talk about warp stuff, like you can have other warp entities that are not just strictly the chaos gods or that are aligned with the chaos gods. Obviously, Gork and Mork is very much of that flavor. They are definitely a warp entity brought upon by like the Orks' power of belief, but they're not chaos, so to speak. So what's to say they don't have their own little pocket dimension within the warp that's separate from Nurgle's garden or Slanesh's palace or whatever.
Yeah. I like to think too, like, that the Orks are right, because they typically are right in their thinking, and that when the Orks die, they actually do go to this Valhalla, the Great Green, where they just battle for all eternity. We talked about like a snowball effect of the warp, where once the gods get going, like the gods battling amongst themselves, the great game almost is enough power to keep the great game going forever, because there's always plotting and murdering and blah, blah, blah. But yeah, man, like if every orc that dies, his soul goes to the Great Green to continue fighting and WAAAGHing and growing, like Gork and Mork, they're the most powerful, man. Like they're be unstoppable.
Someone had made the comment before, like even, and I think it was meant as a joke, but like even Corn fears Gork and Mork, or something related to that because of what you had just mentioned.
Yeah, exactly. Another small little touch of like, we'll call it the anecdotal evidence, is Tuska, who we will dive into more later. But Tuska, the brief story is he's an orc that went into the warp and fought on a demon world and died, and every day is reborn. But later this episode, we'll talk more about him. But that sounds very similar. It just sounds like he died in the wrong place and he wasn't able to get his soul to the Great Green. But the concept of his soul forever battling in the warp is still the orcish concept.
Still part of the Great Green in general.
Yeah.
Very cool. I like it. I really like the idea of like Orc Valhalla. Now, if orcs have a Valhalla, who are the Valkyries? Do we got female squig orc riders like they're coming down and picking the best orcs?
Yeah.
That'd be amazing.
That would be great.
Oh man.
All right. Warboss Cracky here. I got a question for Mark. If all orcs go to the Great Green, can we believe another creature goes in there with us when they die? Just like green beakies or green oomies. Them, what they call them, Cadians. Or the green beakies like them salamanders. Or even the dark angels, because they all wear green, and green's the best color. Can we believe them into existence in the Great Green?
Yeah, I think that's the best part about the Great Green is whatever eternal battle you want, Graka, awaits you. And while you're doing it, you're just going to make your gods more powerful. That's the beautiful thing of it. Now, are they actually salamanders and other green Astartes and Cadians? Yes, my sweet child, you can believe that.
Perfect.
It's your heaven. You have it your way,
Fantastic.
So many Kroot in the Great Green. I love that too. Yeah.
Yeah, that is kind of a fun idea. Like, okay, so what else could go to these realms? Like, how do you divvy out souls when everyone dies? Like, will Gork and Mork let the best warriors of other races, especially if they are green, into the Great Green? Or is that pretty much exclusively like Orc Valhalla? Do you guys see it kind of going any which way?
I mean, personally is probably just an orc Valhalla, but I just thought that would be a fun question to bring up. Like, would anything green could anything green
Yeah.
be believed to go there? So, because
Just
that
imagine
reminds
like
me.
you die as a Kroot and you just like wake up and you're like, oh my god,
Yeah.
just died again. Wakes up.
Yeah.
No.
Not again, all eternity.
Oh no!
Yeah,
Right.
no, I think it's not. I think it's only orcs. Like orcs are very orc centric. You know, they're not allying with other races. They think every other race is beneath them. Green is best. You know, so going with that theme, I don't think they're letting other races into their heaven because they're not even worthy fights anyways. Like, oh great, this Kroot's here. Like this orc war boss is a better fight. That's my heaven.
This reminds me of a meme. Now this is non-canon, completely non-canon, but still funny. Was a Acadian guardsman is ambushed by a bunch of orcs, so he drops his las rifle and goes, "Wait a minute, I'm green. I'm an orc. I'm an orc." And of course, the lead, the war boss is like, "No, you're not, a bloody orc." But then all the other orcs behind him heard, "I'm an orc." It's like, "Oh, he's an orc. He's an orc. He's an orc." And then the war boss turns around, turns back to look at the guardsman. And then he's looking at another orc. It's like, "Oh, he's an orc. Let's go crumping."
You're that guardsman. You're just like shaking. Oh my god. Oh my god.
He lived 7 years as an undercover in orc society before he was finally able to escape and gain his freedom.
And it would have been perfect, dude, like because he says he's an orc. Every orc pictures him as a different orc. So
Yeah.
and nobody can figure out who he is because he always looks different to everybody. So did you see that orc with the teeth necklace and the bandana? And they're like, no, I saw an orc with a a bandana of teeth and a necklace that was made of cloth. And they're like, oh, fine. Who are we gonna
I'll
find?
fight you over that.
Yeah,
Yeah.
exactly. Oh
man.
man, amazing.
Buzz says headcanon, if you're a good fighter and you die fighting orcs is his key kind of thing, you can go to the Great Green. So that's kind of a fun way to do it. Like, yeah.
Yeah, I think like what Grimaldus had said about what about old Baelai, like Yarrick, he's got an orc claw.
Sure.
I bet you there's a little bit of orc still left in that thing somewhere that's like bonded to his flesh almost.
Yeah. Yeah, maybe that would be the best example of if anyone ever made it to the Great Green, it would be him. The prophet of the WAAAGH is like, come on, do I get a +1 or what?
That's why he's so keen on getting Angron.
Yeah. Thraka's just standing there like, I'm not going in unless he can come with me.
You're either gonna die over some mortal. Someone is.
Right. Oh man. Perfect.
All right. Let's jump now into how Gork and Mork kind of manifest themselves in, worship or the WAAAGH or Weird Boys is another good manifestation. Just kind of their overall emotional mindset. You guys want to take away? How do you guys worship Gork and Mork? Sunday school? What'd they teach you?
I ain't never heard of the Sunday school. I don't even know what worship is. Because the orcs don't need to worship me like some fancy god. They just need to smash and fight like I taught them. What they do is live like me. Hit hard, hit first, and leave no one standing. That's all I care about. Orcs don't need to kneel and sing my praises. Nah. They just got to keep pushing the war. If they're fighting, breaking stuff, and getting stronger, then they're doing it right. I don't need worship. I need strength and power. And that's what the orcs bring me every single day.
Nice.
That's not how we do it with the warship. I like it better when the orcs just act like me. Cunning, tricky, and always finding a way to win. They don't have to bow down or make offerings. They just gotta be smart and crafty, just like I am. If they're messing with the enemy's head, putting it off to sneaky moves and causing confusion, I'm a happy. Worship ain't needed. Just let 'em clever and brutal like me.
Yeah. Words are meaningless is what I'm kind of gathering. You guys want to see action. You want them to walk the walk, punch the punch, drink the grog.
Get them teefs.
Yeah.
It's all about
Orks do not worship Gork and Mork in the same way the humans revere their gods with prayers, rituals, and temples. Instead, they honor their brutal deities through action, by fighting, crumping, and waging a WAAAGH across the galaxy. Every battle orc fight, every enemy they smash, and every cunning trick they pull off is an offering to Gork and Mork. Warbosses and knobs who embody the traits of their god, whether it be Gork's raw, unstoppable strength or Mork's sneaky, underhanded brutality, are often seen as favored by them. Orks do not need written down doctrine or holy text. They instinctually know what their gods want: more fighting, more smashing, and a never-ending search for the next great scrap. In this way, every WAAAGH is a living, rampaging act of devotion, proof that the orcs are fulfilling the will of their gods by simply being orcs. While orcs don't have priests in the traditional sense, weird boys, orcs who act as psychic conduits for the WAAAGH, are often regarded as being closer to Gork and Mork than other greenskins. These shamans sometimes claim to hear the voices of the gods in the midst of battle, urging orcs to fight harder or come up with a particularly cunning plan. Some weird boys go into violent trances, their heads growing with raw WAAAGH energy, and scream out what they believe to be divine messages from Gork and Mork. Warbosses will sometimes heed these weird boys' prophecies, heed these visions, especially if they promise bigger fights and more loot. However, if the weird boy's prophecies don't lead to enough violence and destruction, an impatient orc might simply crump them and find another, more properly attuned weird boy. Ultimately, orcs don't need deep theology or complicated rituals. They express their faith. Their entire way of life is a proof of their god's existence. And as long as they keep fighting, they know Gork and Mork are pleased. Yeah. It's easy, man. It's so easy. We talk about the orcs having the best time in 40K. Everyone else is like, fuck. And they're just living. They're just, even their worship of gods is like the perfect embodiment of it.
Exactly. When you're talking about win conditions for each faction, and I know we've talked about this before, orcs have been winning since day one.
Yeah.
Now, everybody always says the orcs are winning since day one, but what if you become a lone orc? Like you're on a planet, you're somehow you're in like a starship, and then you get like drop potted down onto this planet. There's no other orcs around. There's no other like inhabited life, and you're just a lonely little orc. Can't
Yeah,
please
it
Gork
would
and
be
Mork
like,
if you're not fighting.
yeah, you would be like depressed. And like, even, we talk about this WAAAGH energy as something that like the orcs literally kind of feel, and it emboldens them. It gives them power. They feel it course through their veins, And now this guy doesn't have that anymore.
Mhm.
On top of not having anyone to fight with. And like, yeah, that is a sad orc.
Right? Like, obviously, orcs always release the spores and everything like that, so there's going to be more orcs eventually. But
That's a good point.
those the first 30 days, just like, I'm so alone, no one here beside me.
I'm so
Oh,
sorry.
man.
I don't have any more orcs to fight. No why?
There's
It's
no
so
why.
sad. Poor
Just completely
Wogless.
crying.
Yeah.
I'm Wallace.
The weirdest boy. That's a good comment.
Yeah, weirdest boy. There you go. Oh man.
Fair.
But
Let's read Ursat's comment real quick. My favorite for a lone orc would be the one that got stuck under something, so become like yellow pale because they're plants, and everything avoids him because he's strange.
Just
yeah,
completely ostracized by all the other orcs. It's like,
Yeah, he's not a proper green boy.
yeah.
Hmm.
And before I get going into notes, can I get a big whoa from the chat? Come on, boys.
Just
Give me a big whoa. Thank you very much. A war is more than just an orc war campaign. It is a colossal galaxy-spanning eruption of violence, momentum, and raw psychic energy that grows stronger the more orcs join in.
Okay, out of character. At its core, a war is driven by an orc war boss who has grown powerful enough to rally countless war bands under their banner, uniting them in an unstoppable tide of destruction. Orcs live for fighting, and when enough of them gather in one place, their collective belief fuels the war energy that makes them even stronger, faster, and harder to kill. Their technology works better, their weapons hit harder, and even the laws of physics seem to bend in their favor. A war isn't just a battle. It's a self-sustaining force of nature, a green tidal wave that engulfs entire star systems in endless war. The sheer scale of the war can vary from local planets. Whoa!
I'm a couple behind, honestly. It's not good.
The sheer scale can vary from a local planetary invasion to a sector-wide catastrophe that threatens the entire civilizations. Some are chaotic and unfocused, driven by the orcs' instinctive need to fight anything in sight, while others are frighteningly organized under a cunning war boss with grand ambitions. The longer a war lasts, the more it grows. As orcs are drawn to the fighting like moths to a flame, even defeated wars rarely spell the end for the orcs. Survivors scatter, regroup, and eventually start the cycle all over again. Some Imperial scholars speculate that Gork and Mork themselves might be the unseen force behind these endless conflicts, laughing as their favored warriors tear across the galaxy. Whether divine intervention or just the orcs' natural way, one truth remains certain. When a war begins, there's little that can stop it. And for the chat, can I get one last war?
WAAAGH!
Yeah, fucking WAAAGH is
It
worship.
sounds like I'm
man.
smoking cigarettes, and I want to invite all of you down to the cocktails at the Black Angus.
Now listen to your grandmother, Bro Diddley. Don't smoke. Now while you're out, get
Spaghetti
your grandmother a
Stats-
pack of
Stats calls
cigarettes.
them.
Camel Unfiltered, please.
Yikes. Why does that turn me on, that voice?
That just means you got issues, Mark.
Mark! It's
Mark!
time for bed, sweetie. Come to bed. Anyways, weird. So, you know, if the WAAAGH is the crusade, it's the way you worship. We got Weird Boys as kind of the priest class of the orc bodies. Let's talk about them.
I think we lost Brody.
Okay, well, that's what he was supposed to read. So I'll read his part. I set him up and everything. Well, Weird.
Mark, you mute yourself.
Wow. Between the mute and the Brody drop, what are we up to here?
I don't know, but it sounds like Gork and Mork's not pleased.
Weird Boys are orc psychers who act as conduits for the WAAAGH, energy tapping directly into the warp through their intense psychic connection to the Great Green. Unlike human psychers who are often burdened by the perils of the warp, Weird Boys thrive within the chaotic currents, drawing power from the collective belief and emotional energy of the orc race. This connection to the warp is essential for them to perform their strange, often volatile psychic feats such as causing explosions, summoning lightning, or creating destructive psychic waves that leave enemies in disarray. Their powers are a direct reflection of Gork and Mork's influence. Raw. Whoa, I just lost my spot. Gork and Mork's influence. Gork's raw, smashing strength flows through them as a brutal force of nature, while Mork's cunning and unpredictability manifests in their ability to deceive, outsmart, and outmaneuver. They're foes with unorthodox strategies. Weird boys may not fully understand the intricacies of their powers, but they instinctively channel the will of the gods through the WAAAGH, becoming living avatars of Gork and Mork's chaotic, destructive nature. Some weird boys even claim to hear the voices of the Ork gods during battle, fueling their actions with divine guidance, though it is often a much wild and confusing barrage of sensations, as it is a coherent prophecy. Man, I forget which episode it was, but probably around the 70 mark, we did Weird Boys and WAAAGH Energy, I think it was called. And it was a super fun episode on just like the Orks operate so differently in the way that they draw from it and the powers they can channel. And it was a really fun episode.
I remember that one. It was very interesting to listen to, and like also seeing it in like different books and stuff, even on like tabletop. Very, very cool kind of idea of what that is for people, or for orcs, different orcs. Sorry I dropped out there, guys, as well. I don't know what happened. The computer just turned off and then turned back on again. So
that's fine. You must have said something bad. Yeah.
Yeah, I was not proving myself to Gork and Mork, and they just decided the green energy was no longer going to, go into my computer. But Orc emotions, though, because they've had the weird boys feel things. Got to have emotions to feel. Orcs are creatures driven by a constant, unrelenting surge of emotion, with rage and anger being at the forefront of their psyche. This boundless aggression is not just a part of their nature, it is a vital force that feeds the WAAAGH and the warp itself. This entire existence is defined by the need to fight, to destroy, and to be the strongest, which ties directly into Gork and Mork's domains. Gork, the brutal god of strength, is the embodiment of the orc's raw, untamed fury, and when orcs channel his rage, it becomes a weapon of incredible power, capable of leveling entire cities or smashing through the strongest of defenses. The more anger they feel, the more intense the WAAAGH becomes, as it strengthens the psychic energy that flows through them. This psychic outburst feeds into the warp, where it is drawn by the orc gods, intensifying their presence and power, making their influence felt even more strongly throughout the galaxy. But rage is only one side of the orc psyche. Cunning and creativity are just as crucial to their existence, especially in the form of Mork's influence. Mork, the trickster god, thrives in the chaotic and unpredictable aspects of orc behavior, leading them to devise ingenious solutions in battle, from unexpected ambushes to bizarre but effective weapons. This creativity feeds the warp in a different way, fueling a constantly evolving and unpredictable psychic energy that further sustains the WAAAGH. The orc's ability to combine brutal force with clever tactics is a direct result of Mork's teachings, and it often surprises their enemies when orcs use seemingly simple strategies to outwit or outmaneuver more sophisticated foes. Sophisticated foes. That's a tongue twister, Mark. The combination of rage and cunning, powerful in both its brute force and creative application, feeds directly into the gods themselves, making them stronger and ensuring that the WAAAGH never dies. In this way, the orcs' emotions aren't just chaotic outbursts, they are vital offerings to the gods, adding to the endless cycle of destruction and creation that defines their war-driven existence.
Yeah.
And then never mind, yeah.
Everything they do just feeds them more. They're the perfect operating creature in in every way that they're designed, whether it's due to like how they match other people's like technology levels so they get a good fight, or what happens to them when they die and their emotions, how that feeds everything. Everything just works out really, really well.
But now I gotta ask another little question. Orcs are mad all the time when they're doing their crumping. But corn is a god of anger and rage and bloodshed. So who is it really feeding? Is it feeding Gork and Mork, or is it feeding corn? Or is it feeding both at
The
the
answer
same
is
time?
both.
Yeah, but let me say this. Do you think Gork and Mork are gonna take kindly to taking food out of their mouth? They're gonna fight corn over that energy. I think all the orc energy goes to the orcs, man. Like when it comes to all the other gods and stuff, you almost get like, okay, so they might like humans, they might like Eldar and stuff. All the races might have kind of a specific affinity, but when it comes to orcs, I really think orcs are just for orcs, man.
Now here's the orc blood. Is it actually blood? Because they're just spores, right? It's just is it? They're just fungi. Is it really blood? Does corn care from whence the fungi, liquid goes?
Yeah, like it's
I don't know, right?
Is it blood or sap? And
Yes,
sap for the sap
it's
god.
sap.
That's a different
ripping
saying.
them apart, when you're ripping them apart in the first Space Marine game, it might as well be blood. So
Sap for the sap gods. I love that. That's fantastic.
Syrup for the Canadians. Perfect.
Yeah, exactly. I need some of that.
Up next, we kind of got the prophet of the WAAAGH, Thraka. We've done episodes on him, so we'll just give a little summary and specifically focus on what makes him the prophet of Gork and Mork.
Well, I think I might have said this quote before in the last Orc episode, but I'm going to say it again. I'm Warlord Gazkul Magurk Thraka, and I'll speak with the word of the gods. I'm a prophet of the war, and whole worlds burn in my blueprints. Gazkul
Hell yeah,
Magurk.
brother.
Hell yeah.
Gazkul Magurk Thraka, often referred to as the prophet of Gork and Mork, is the most powerful and influential orc war boss to ever rise to prominence. His rise to power is intertwined with his perceived divine favor from the orc gods themselves, a destiny he carved through cunning, bloodshed, and sheer willpower. Thraka's claim to being the prophet began when he experienced a strange, almost mystical encounter in which he believed Gork and Mork themselves spoke to him. It was during a time when the orc race was fractured and scattered, with no true unity among the many warbands. Thraka, after surviving a near-fatal confrontation with a rival war boss, declared that he had received a vision from the gods. The orcs, always ready to believe in something that would bring them to greater glory, quickly rallied behind his claim. They saw his unrelenting drive to conquer and his victories in battle as proof that he was a chosen of Gork and Mork, the one destined to lead them all into a war unlike any other. Thraka's role as the prophet of Gork and Mork was solidified through his ability to inspire and command, rallying the disparate orc factions into one vast war. This is really going to get tiring real quick. His charisma, combined with the belief that he was divinely guided, made him an almost mythical figure among the orcs. His understanding of the war and its influence on the warp allowed him to tap into a power greater than any single orc could wield. Through his deep connection to Gork and Mork, Thraka could channel the psychic energy of the war more effectively than war. I lost my place. Than any other, turning his wah into a self-sustaining force that could sweep across whole sectors of the galaxy. As the prophet, he also gained access to new and increasingly powerful forms of warfare, with his visions often guiding him to unimaginable feats of destruction and tactical brilliance that would make Gork and Mork proud. Thraka's ability to meld sheer aggression with ruthless strategy elevated him above other war bosses, allowing him to become the face of the orc race's greatest war.
Many orcs, especially the weird boys, believe that Thraka is the physical embodiment of Gork and Mork's will on the material plane, their direct representative in the fight for dominance. It is said that the gods themselves guide him through their messages, which often come in the form of obscure signs, sudden bursts of insight, or an overwhelming sense of certainty in the midst of chaos. Some of these visions are said to be so powerful that Thraka's followers believe he can tap into the true might of Gork and Mork at will. As if the gods themselves are steering his actions, this divine favor is a key component of Thraka's image as the prophet. His WAAAGH is seen as a force that cannot be stopped, not just because of his strength, but because it is the will of Gork and Mork. To the orc masses, he is not just the war boss. He is the chosen leader, anointed by the gods and destined to lead the orcs to ultimate victory, whether or not the gods truly chose him. Thraka's power, influence, and unstoppable drive have made him a figure of legend, forever cementing his place as the prophet of Gork and Mork. And we got one more quote from him. The great green hands hold on. The great green hands themselves have guided us here. You can join the WAAAGH or get out of the way.
Yeah.
Love it. That quote's fantastic. You can join the wall or get out of the way.
Yeah. How do we feel about I feel like there needs to be another prophet. Like, it's weird to me that Gork and Mork are both like blessing Thraka. You know, Thraka feels like he's very much like a brutal follower. You know, I feel like we need another character to come out and be more of that cunning kind of guy. You know, maybe Thraka is pretty cunning with all his tactics and stuff. He can wage large scale warfare and stuff like that, but he can do it, but I feel like he doesn't embody it to the same degree. And just, you know, with that constant conflict, you can't just have one war boss. He needs competition out there. You know, there has to be two at the leadership position, kind of fighting each other to see who's actually going to be the best.
That is totally a missed Hero Hammer opportunity, GW. I'm disappointed in you.
Yeah. Come on, give us more heroes.
Who is that? Who's the sneaky Snickrot or
Yeah, Grotsnick.
Grotsnick? Is that oh gosh, Commando War Boss. Yeah, Snickrot. Yeah. Snickrot the Stalker. He's a skilled orc commando who leads a company of orc special forces known as the Red Skull Commandos. But like something like that, like having a commando war boss that like is Mork's favored son and Gork is Thraka's favored, like Thraka is Gork's favored son kind of thing. I think that would be interesting, having kind of like a dichotomy of the two, but they're always kind of working against each other, so they can never have one great big green WAAAGH.
Yeah, no, exactly. Yeah,
Isn't
but
there
they're
a
okay
grot
with
named-
that.
Isn't there like
Exactly.
a grot named Makari also, if I'm not mistaken? Or
Yeah,
am I
that's
getting that wrong?
Thraka's grot.
Ah. Okay, yeah,
Yeah.
someone in the chat's like, Makari helps with that part with his daggers named Gork and Mork.
That's funny.
There you go.
Yeah. Yeah, I would definitely like to see a character. Maybe somebody needs to write a short story of what that guy like. There's definitely an opportunity there to be the prophet of Mork. You know, really expand that.
I think a great contender would be the one listener lore where like I think it was just like the grot whispering into the war boss's ear the entire time, running from behind the scenes.
It's like
Yeah,
a
that was
like
a
a
good one.
Master Blaster kind of scene.
Oh, quick correction. Snickrot's daggers are Gork and Mork's teeth. That's what it was.
That's cool.
That's
Cool.
pretty sweet.
Yeah, you know, that's such an interesting one because they quite literally could be his teeth. They might not be a metaphorical teeth thing, which then brings a whole new set of implications, which could very well be possible.
Oh no! Apparently, it's Snickrot's daggers are called Gork and Mork's teeth.
Snickrocks.
Yeah.
Yeah, cool.
Cool.
Uh,
That's actually
Gork and Mork, they function in the warp, and there's a couple other powers that the other Chaos Gods seem to have that they don't. Gork and Mork do have the power to make their own realm and like manifest reality to some degree and maintain it. They're powerful enough to do that. But the one thing they can't seem to do or choose not to do is make demons. Which could be interesting. Gork and Mork demons. What would those look like? We got the little section of reading, and then we'll talk about that kind of concept. There's long been speculation among orcs and imperial scholars alike about whether Gork and Mork, the two mighty orc gods, can manifest their own demons, much like other chaos gods do with their myriad of minions. While the nature of Gork and Mork's power is fundamentally different from the other chaos gods, being fueled by the aggressive emotions and psychic energy of the orcs rather than the emotions of mortals, the question remains, could they manifest demons of their own? Given that the warp itself is shaped by the collective thoughts, desires, and emotions of sentient beings, it is entirely plausible that Gork and Mork, as embodiments of raw strength and cunning, could manifest entities that reflect their own particular domains. These demons would be born from intense rage and creativity that orcs embody, giving them fundamentally different nature from the demons of Khorne, Chinch, Nurgle, and Slaanesh. If Gork and Mork were to manifest as demons, their forms would likely reflect their nature as gods of violence, strength, and unpredictability. Gork's demons would probably take the form of monstrous, brute-like creatures with immense strength and simple destructive power. These demons would be thick-skinned, massive, and covered in scars of war paint, marking them as formidable and terrifying in combat. They would be relentless, crushing their enemies with primal rage akin to the orc mindset, and smash first and ask questions later. Conversely, Mork's demons would likely possess more devious traits, cunning and stealthy, with an ability to confuse and deceive and outwit their enemies. They might appear as shape-shifting creatures, capable of fooling their foes with trickery and ambushes, playing mind games as much as engaging in physical combat. The contrast between Gork's sheer force and Mork's devious tactics would result in demons that exemplify the distinct personalities of the gods.
Are you ready to have your mind blown? Because you basically
Yeah.
just described orcs and grots in general. Oh. Dang it, Buzz, you beat me to it!
Plot twist. Fuzz says, orcs are Gork and Mork demons. The old ones were masters of the warp and made a deal with Gork and Mork for use of their demons. Quark.
You beat me by 30 seconds, Fuzz. You beat me by 30 seconds.
Okay,
I
so
think
that's what you guys
spot
like,
on.
eh? Okay. Yeah, okay, you guys can have your way with that one. Who am I to argue with Gork and Mork in the warp, you know?
I'm telling you right now, the idea of like actual demons in orc form, terrifying. Way worse
Yeah.
than real orcs.
Yeah, hey.
For sure.
In terms of how these demons would function within the WAAAGH, it's likely that they would act as either powerful shock troops or elite infiltrators. Depending on their divine origin, Gork's demons would charge into battle with savage glee, leading the charge in a full throttle assault, while Mork's demons might operate behind enemy lines, causing chaos and disorder by manipulating situations to their advantage. There might even be a hybrid demon, both of Gork and Mork's influence, that combine brute strength and unpredictable cunning. These demons would be the embodiment of the WAAAGH itself, able to manifest through the collective rage and belief of the orcs during times of intense conflict, adding further weight to the idea that Gork and Mork do not need traditional demons like the other chaos gods, but instead channel their power directly through the orc race as their unique psychic connection to the warp. If such creatures were able to manifest, they would be a true reflection of the orcs' chaotic, destructive nature, born from their very essence of their gods. And, you know, that last line almost brought it right back to what Fuzz said, where orcs kind of are the demons, where Gork and Mork don't need to make demons because they're just powering the Gorks or the orcs themselves. They're making them grow bigger and stronger and making them immune and all that kind of stuff. So in a way, yeah, they are kind of the demons.
Okay, here's another mind-boggling thing. So if orcs and grots are just the regular demons, what if a Quark is a greater demon?
There we go. Yeah.
Oh, there
Yeah,
you go. Orks are greater demons. Orcs are just regular demons, and then Gretchen are lesser demons. Like,
You got plenty of beasts and steeds with the squig-offs and squigs and all those different things. Yeah.
I think they should just have like the Codex Chaos Demons, also orcs.
Or
There we go.
tradition.
Every codex is an orc codex, if you believe hard
Exactly. Perfect.
Yeah. Yeah, I like the thought of the different forms where one is like, it's so clear, one's a hulking brute demon and the other one's like this shifting, like you try to slice through it and you never quite can make contact with it, you know, where the other one is just like it's gonna wrestle you to the ground and pin ya.
Mm-hmm.
That's
Buzz
the
takes this one step further. The beast was a demon prime orc. I like
God.
this. I like where this is going.
It's so deep, yes. Yeah.
So deep.
Or or it was the beast, demon prince or whatever. Gork and Mork's demon prince.
Oh, a demon prince. Yeah, there you go.
Ah. So deep, so deep.
Does that make Gazgul a demon prince?
On his way, I think. You know, he's favored for sure. He's like the Abaddon. You know, he's got all the marks ready. He's just need that one more little piece of the puzzle.
Yeah, I like that idea.
And what do our resident orcs think of demons and Gork and Mork?
Demons? Yeah, I reckon I could have me a few. If Gork has demons, they'd be big, tough, and ugly, like the kind of beasts that don't stop hitting till everything's flat. Big as mountains, stomping around, smashing anything in their path. They'd be raw power, just like me. No tricks, no fancy stuff, just pure, unrelenting strength. When orcs call on me in the heat of battle, them demons would come crashing down, breaking everything in sight, leaving nothing but rubble behind. A real war machine in flesh. That's Gork's way, mate.
Oh, demons, huh? Well, if I had demons, they'd be sneaky, tricky little blighters. They wouldn't be big and clumsy like Gorks. Mine be all about messing with your mind, making you think one thing, then bam, they hit you where it is. Maybe they'd be shapeshifters, tricking and confusing the enemy, playing mind games before showing their true selves. My demons wouldn't just fight, they'd make you doubt your every move. Wouldn't that be a good laugh? Real cunning, just like me.
Well, I'll take offense to that. You trying to have yourself a crumpet now?
Right?
Yeah, maybe in the early ages, Gork and Mork did create demons, and then he's just like, well, fuck, they're always fighting each other. Like, they don't do anything. Like, yeah, okay, they are fighting, but like he sends them out into the real world and they just like massacre each other on the spot. Like, wasted
They don't
energy.
actually fight the real enemy; they just fight each other.
Yeah, exactly. And Gork and Mork is just like, well, that's just straight up a waste of energy at this point.
Yeah.
Okay, so new plan. Wait till they come closer and then spawn in the demons. Oh wait, they're still fighting each other, and they're dead. Okay, never mind.
Ah,
Damn it.
Okay. Damn it! We were so close.
Now,
man,
we do
and-
have the example
Go
of
ahead.
Tuska Demon Killer, who is like, it maybe could be classified as this demon type orc that we're kind of talking about. So let's read about them or him.
Yeah, absolutely. Tuska the Demon Killer is one of the most legendary figures in orc history, a war boss whose feats of brutality and violence have become the stuff of orc myth. Known as the Demon Killer, Tuska earned his first fearsome title through his unstoppable crusade against the forces of chaos, specifically the demons that infest the warp. His story began during a WAAAGH where Tuska's warband encountered a demon prince and his horde of chaos worshippers. Rather than fleeing or retreating, as many might have expected from a less ferocious war boss, Tuska charged headlong into the fray with his massive axe, cleaving through the demons with a fury that seemed to channel the wrath of Gork and Mork themselves. His obsession with killing demons became legendary, and every battle he fought saw him grow bolder and more destructive, cutting down the twisted creatures of the warp with ever increasing savagery. To the Orks, this was a sign that Tuska was blessed by Gork and Mork, given the strength and determination to battle even the most otherworldly of foes. The myth of Tuska the Demon Killer spread far and wide across the galaxy, with Orks from all corners of the Imperium flocking to join his WAAAGH. Many Orks, driven by the desire to fight chaos and prove their worth, were drawn to Tuska's banner, eager to participate in his brutal crusade. His WAAAGH became a rallying cry for Orks who saw the demons of chaos as the ultimate enemy to crush. Tuska's warband would march across battlefields with a single goal: to kill as many demons as possible. His reputation grew with each victory, and his unstoppable nature made him nearly a figure of legend. In Ork culture, the notion of fighting and killing demons became a badge of honor, a display of true power, and Tuska stood as the prime example of an Ork who had achieved the impossible. His WAAAGH was considered a divine mission by many Orks, who saw him as the chosen one to rid the galaxy of the corruption of chaos. However, like many Ork legends, the fate of Tuska is a mix of triumph and tragedy. His last known battle saw him face off against an entire chaos warband led by a greater demon, an epic confrontation that seemed destined to end in the demon killer's death. In the thick of the battle, with his warband locked in a vicious struggle, Tuska was seemingly swallowed by the forces of chaos. To this day, Ork warbands still search for Tuska, believing that he may have been consumed by the warp, only to return stronger than ever. Some say that Gork and Mork themselves are keeping him in the warp, preparing him for a future WAAAGH against chaos itself, while others whisper that Tuska's fate was sealed the moment he took on the very essence of chaos itself. Regardless of what happened to him, the legend of Tuska the Demon Killer remains a powerful symbol of Ork strength, a reminder that even the most terrifying foes can be vanquished in the name of Gork and Mork. So sick. I love the idea of Tuska the Demon Killer.
Yeah, such a cool concept. I always picture him as red. Do you as well?
Kind of like I imagine. So in my brain, I imagine him being green, but painted red or like other colors with symbols that he thinks help him fight demons.
Oh, that's kind of cool. Almost like Grey Knight runes and markings and stuff like that, but
Yeah,
orcified. Yeah,
orcified like
okay.
Grey Knight runes, and then like his weapons that he imbues, like he has his weird boys imbue with power from Gork and Mork to help kill demons and stuff, almost like
Yeah.
sanctifying ammunition and stuff. Like I think that idea of like him being like this like almost holy orc is amazing.
That is a fucking great idea, man. I love that.
I think that if I was ever going to do orcs, I think I would do like a Tuska demon killer warband. I think that would be sick.
Yeah. Where they take that shit seriously. Like, they're not just like, we like fighting demons. They're a good fight. They're like, we're going to vanquish the demons. We're going to strip them of their power. They're going to be no more when we're done with them. It's like, maybe not personal, but it's like complete destruction.
But they also said like he was there to rid the galaxy of chaos's corruption. So he is really on like an orcish crusade to get
Yeah.
rid of them. It's almost like he doesn't find joy in killing demons. He just hates them so much that he needs to kill them.
Yeah.
I like
Yeah,
it.
such a cool fucking character for sure.
Yeah.
Now he is like tied to Korn now at this point. Like it's a weird one. Is he a servant of Korn? Korn's the one who keeps resurrecting him and bringing him back. Does he still have his kind of own say over his soul? I don't know.
I don't know, man.
Maybe.
When you involve the chaos and the warp and a lot of stuff, there ain't much
Probably not.
saving. But all this talk about Tuska reminds me of a short story. I walked off to grab. This was the book that got me into the hobby, believe it or not. And this is an anthology that came out for 9th edition. And there's an orc short story called "Where There's the Warp, There's the Way." And this stars not Tuska, but Uftak Blackhawk. I think he's a pretty popular orc character. I've heard his name before in other orc stories. But let me see here. Basically, he's having a little infighting with another war boss, and then, spoiler alert, he gets his head cut off by a pain boy and attaches it to a bigger orc body, so he can rematch his rival war boss. And then at the very end, they take the ship into the warp. And then I'm just going to read like the last couple of paragraphs. "All right, lads," Uptack barked, laying about him. The boys hadn't coped well with the cataclysmic warm diffusion, or whatever it was, the boffin had shed. And most of them were still on their backs or counting their fingers to see if they still had the same amount, which was causing some problems in Defro's case, as he couldn't now remember how many he had started with. A few knocks with the haft end of the hammer got them back into it. However, "The entertainment is coming. Up you gets." The other massive door slammed back, and something made of blood and steel and endless hunger squirmed in, all sharp teeth and barbed tongues and glistening black talons that reached out hungrily for flesh. Uftak grinned at it. Time to see what his new body could do. "On me, lads. 1, 2, 3. Wah!"
Wah!
Deliberately going into the warp without a Geller field just so they can crump some demons.
Yeah, fucking
Amazing.
tight.
So tight.
They're just counting their fingers. They're like, "Oh, things are happening."
Oh. Wait, how many did I have?
How many did I start with? I need a weird boy for my weird boy.
Right?
Yeah.
Frick, man, that's so sweet. But yeah, I love the idea of like the chaos, like fighting orcs fighting chaos and like demon killer orcs, like so sick.
Yeah.
So sick. I love that.
The next little bit we'll talk about is Gork and Mork culture, involving the clans specifically. So, we have the snake bites, the goths, the evil sons. We got all those. So how does Gork and Mork culture kind of bleed into those?
Well, funny you should ask, Mark, because I'm going to take it over from here.
Orc clans all revere Gork and Mork, but the way they interpret and honor their gods varies based on their unique cultures and ways of war.
The Goths, being the biggest, toughest, and fightiest of all orcs, believe in Gork above all, brutally cunning and smashing heads without much thought for trickery.
To them, Mork is a bit too sneaky, though they still give him his... okay, Orc voice it is.
Goths show their devotion by constantly brawling, never backing down from a scrap, and leading the biggest wars. Their bosses often claim to be direct mouthpieces of Gork, and if an orc dares to disagree, he gets punched in the face until he sees the truth. The Bad Moons, being the richest orcs, have a different take. They believe Morks favor their cunning business sense, allowing them to amass the best gear and flashiest weapons. While they still respect Gork's raw strength, they see Mork as the cleverest of the gods. After all, what's better than crumping an enemy? Crumping an enemy while wearing golden teeth and firing a custom mega blaster. Their mechs and flash kits often claim divine inspiration from Gork when they build powerful and often unstable weapons, believing that the sneaky brilliance guards their hands. Now, on the other hand, the Blood Axes have a more tactical and strategic view of Gork and Mork. They argue that Mork is actually the sneakier and smarter of the two, favoring their use of ambushes, planning, and even, sacrilegiously, working alongside non-orcs. Blasphemy. Some blood axes even wear camouflage and conduct battlefield maneuvers inspired by Umi armies, believing Mork approves of their trickery. The evil sons, obsessed with speed, think Gork and Mork are always in motion, favoring those who never stop moving and fight at the fastest pace possible. The Death Skulls, notorious looters, claim Mork smiles upon their thievery, blessing them with lucky blue war paint. Lastly, the Snakebites, the most traditional of the Orks, believe in a more primal version of the gods. Gork is the spirit of the hunt, while Mork is the wily survivalist who ensures the Orks endure no matter what. And this makes me think of a nice little poem that I'm going to read out to you now. Roses are red, red makes things go faster. So tell the Zorgan mech boy to put it on a blaster.
That's funny. Beautiful poetry, beautiful. Man, just such culture with the Orks, you know?
Or instead of William Blake, it's Orkdom Blake.
Yeah.
Love it.
Yeah, I like how the Orks kind of like, you know, they all kind of have their own interpretations of Gork and Mork, and they just find things that make sense to them, and they just go with it, you know? Whatever. They're all serving Gork and Mork, whether they're from the Goths or the Snake Bites, and they're all doing it in their own way.
Yeah, it's pretty interesting. Yeah, that as you were kind of talking about that, Gerald, I was thinking to myself about that Baneblade novel, and yeah, the Orc war boss is they're blood axes, so their whole thing like is Mork approves of their trickery.
And like
So,
and
I
when you're
like
talking about that, when you're talking about that war boss wearing like the little general's hat, made me think of there was a freebooter captain in, I can't remember which Dawn of War game it is, but he has a pirate hat and he goes after this Inquisitor because she has a fancy hat, and so he wants another fancy hat.
Yeah, Dawn of War 2, I
Amazing.
think Chaos Rising was that one.
That's the
Yeah.
one. That's the one.
That's
Yeah.
fantastic.
Yeah, very cool.
I want the fancy hat.
He's got a
Needs
fancy
it.
hat and I want it.
Cool. Well, that's all the information about Gork and Mork. You know, like I said, a lot of it was kind of just made up or just kind of divined or what I thought kind of makes sense. There's not too much to them. They're just brutally cunning and cunning brutal. The question I have now for you guys, and we have a little bit more reading to do, is he a chaos god? Is he the same thing? Like, what is a chaos god? Maybe we'll start there.
Yeah, we can definitely do that. Chaos gods are powerful, malevolent entities that exist within the warp, the immaterial dimension shaped by the emotions, thoughts, and desires of sentient beings. Unlike conventional deities, they do not exist as independent, preordained figures, but are instead formed and sustained by the psychic energy of mortal races. The four most dominant chaos gods, Khorne, Tzeentch, Nurgle, and Slaanesh, each embody a fundamental aspect of emotion and conflict, growing in power as their respective domains of rage, ambition, despair, and excess spread throughout the galaxy. Their presence warps reality, corrupting those who serve them and granting terrifying boons to their most devoted followers. The Chaos Gods are also spawned demonic legions, creatures of pure warp energy that serve as their extensions in both the immaterium and real space. Crucially, these gods are defined by their eternal hunger for more worship and influence, seeking to spread their influence and consume more souls to feed their power. Gork and Mork kind of contrast to that, but do not function in quite the same way. They are not dependent on mortal worship in the traditional sense, nor do they hunger for more followers or seek to expand their influence across the galaxy like the chaos gods do. Instead, their existence is directly tied to the Orcs' collective belief, manifesting not as entities that corrupt or bargain, but as the primal force of Orc nature itself. Unlike the chaos gods who manipulate their followers for their own ends, Gork and Mork are more personifications of the WAAAGH, a direct reflection of orc psychology and their instinctive drive for battle. There are no Gork or Mork worshipping cultists outside of orc society. That would be amazing, though. No demonic hordes waging war in their names, and no great cosmic schemes being enacted by their will. This makes them fundamentally different from other Chaos Pantheon, as their power is a natural extension of orc existence rather than a corrupting force that twists reality into their liking. That being said, if one were to analyze them from a purely metaphysical perspective, Gork and Mork could be classified as warp entities, albeit unique ones. Like chaos gods, they exist within the immaterium, feeding off the psychic energy of their followers and influence reality through the WAAAGH field, which grants orcs their uncanny abilities. However, they lack the malevolent hunger and ambition that defines chaos, operating more as an unconscious force rather than scheming deities with agendas. The warp is shaped by strong emotions and beliefs, and since orcs are the most warlike species in the galaxy, it makes sense that their gods would take the form of endless battle rather than insidious corruption. Ultimately, Gork and Mork do not neatly fit into the category of chaos gods, but are instead best understood as a unique phenomenon. Anomalous warp entities fueled entirely by the will of the orcs, existing solely to embody and reinforce their endless cycle of war.
Yeah. So pretty similar, but also slightly different. And they just don't quite fall into that chaos god category, even though they are very chaotic and all they do is destroy things. They're not creative builders necessarily. They're yeah. So very different. I like too that they don't have their own demons, and it's interesting seeing how many different ways we can get these gods in the warp to kind of manifest, and all these entities, different abilities and stuff.
Yeah. And like the other thing too is like it had said, they're not trying to extend these great schemes. Like they're not trying to they're not playing the great game like the other chaos gods are. They are just playing their own game. They're the two-headed monster just going whap 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 to each other, playing with themselves more than anything. So I think that's kind of where they sit. So they're not chaos gods. They're not playing in the great game, but they are their own entities that are godlike.
Yeah, they almost don't seem like they care too much about the fate of the galaxy necessarily, they're always going to be happy. They don't need to really have that same great game mindset of getting all the souls. Like they got their stuff locked in. Even we've talked about chaos gods outside of the galaxy. Are they in the galaxy next galaxy over? Well, maybe Nurgle is, all galaxies decay. Maybe Khorne is, lots of places are at war. But we've heard when some psychers look out in the galaxy to other galaxies, all they hear is WAAAGH. And maybe that's another factor of why they don't really care about the great game, or why they just kind of fight themselves, because they're everywhere. They're in every galaxy. Orcs have already infiltrated the universe, Now it's just fighting, which is what they do.
When this is day one.
Yep.
Now that you say that, the psychers, some of them look out past the galaxy and all they hear is WAAAGH. I imagine, because Tyranids are extra galactical entities. Half the galaxies Tyranids, half the other galaxies are Tyranids, half the other galaxies are orcs. And they're just fighting, and we're just like a pebble in the sand going, please don't crush us yet.
Please leave our galaxy alone.
Yeah, that'd be amazing.
The great green is greater than the great gain, Plain Jane says in the chat. Yeah, that's a good one.
Plain Jane's been coming with some fire comments.
Yeah.
Shows.
I feel like that's the first time in the chat for this person too. So welcome. And yeah, always fun.
Coming in with some strong
time.
base takes. Just right out the gate.
All right, we're almost done. You guys could sum up in your best orcish voice. We kind of already did it, but how do the gods, or what's Gork and Mork's relationship to the chaos gods? How do they really feel?
Well, chaos gods. A bunch of squabbling gits always screaming and arguing like a bunch of runts fighting over the last bit of squig pie. Delicious. It's making me hungry. Corn. He likes fighting, sure, but he ain't got no cunning. Just smashes stuff without thinking. Too predictable. Zinch. Too busy plotting and scheming to throw a proper punch. Nurgle. All he does is just sit around and rotten. And Slanesh. No Ork's got time for all the weird, fancy nonsense. Gork don't need him. Gork don't care about him. The WAAAGH is bigger, better, and meaner than any warp spawn nonsense they got. Let them cover in the realms. Let them cower in the realms, sorry. I'll just stomp through them when I feel like it.
Chaos gods. Ha! A right bunch of git they are. Always fighting each other, always playing silly games. They don't work together like a proper WAAAGH. Corn, he's too stupid to be dangerous, just runs in swinging. Zinch thinks he's clever, but an orc could outfox him in a real scrap. Nurgle, too slow, too lazy. Slanesh, poof, ain't even worth mentioning. They got the warp, sure, but we got the WAAAGH. And that's something bigger, meaner, and greener than any chaos trick. Let them play with their games. Me and Gork are too busy getting stuck in and winning.
WAAAGH! Okay, we're into
WAAAGH!
Collins, man. We got Grim just chomping at the bit. I highly recommend, if you're not watching the live stream, hop on now. And yo, Grim, welcome to the show. Yes.
I love it.
I'm sorry, video editors and audio editors, but
I hope you didn't use
Fantastic.
GW paint to paint your face green, because that's a $20 gag all of a sudden.
what do you mean? I do this every fucking night after work.
Part of the local Green Man group.
No. There is no local green mans in Amish country. Trust me. There's only one war boss crying out from the top of one roof.
Yo, also that power claw is outrageous. Flash that up for me. Holy fuck.
So I
beautiful.
tried to be all real sly and pick up my microphone. There's like a little thing right here. So I like disconnected from chat. I like had to open all this shit back up. I'm a fucking mech boy.
Fuck yeah, you are.
That's
yeah, so is
sick,
that
man.
is that thing like 3D printed or like?
Yeah, I got it from some guy in Saudi Arabia. He had like a sweet deal on it. It was like $200. I was like, wow, shit, that's coming home with me.
Who are you to argue? It's almost free. He's giving it away. He's giving power claws away. He didn't even want teeth.
Huh?
He didn't even want.
He didn't even want any teeth.
No teeth. Not even fucking gold. He wanted like nonsense money that the government makes up.
Fucking idiot.
There you go. I'm not gonna lie,
Grim,
dude.
well,
You
that
remind
was-
me of Blanca from Street Fighter.
Yes. Yes.
Exactly. Amazing.
Oh,
my
it's glorious.
Oh,
Yeah.
Mech war.
You guys ever get a
boss,
chance?
Grim, all this fuck.
If you ever get a chance, Grim, after this, go look up Street Fighter Red Tape Blanca on YouTube. It's Pete Holmes like go in like a cubicle, basically interviewing each Street Fighter character and all their problems. He's like, it's like going through the red tape of like how they would actually put this on.
I love it. I love it.
It's amazing. It's perfect. Your green
man.
face paint made me think of that skit so quick.
I wanted to mix it with some black. It wasn't quite green enough, and I threw the shirt on. I was like, the biggest, the maddest, the meanest, the greenest.
The greenest. Yes. Fuck
Perfect.
And the black and white's okay, because you're wearing the colors of the goths, who are the bestest of the orcs.
The ghost.
Yeah. You can hear it clapping.
Power claw, I love it.
I love that thing, man.
So I had asked in the chat earlier, if you can't tell already, I'm a big orc guy. But I had asked in the chat earlier, I never seen anything about what clan Tuska the Demon Killer or Demon Killa comes from. I've never found anything about that. Is that just left for interpretation or what?
I think he's probably his own clan. Like, I think he's probably like he might have come from like each orc kind of has their own clan they come from, but like snake bites turn into goths, right? Like that's kind of like feral orcs turn into non-feral orcs, turn into like it's kind of like this. It just depends on where they branch off, like through that, right?
But I thought
Sure.
tribes can switch, but clans cannot. Unless I have that right backwards, and then clans can switch, but tribes cannot.
Oh god,
No, I
don't
think
know
it's the
anymore.
other way. I think it's clans cannot switch. Like once a snake bite, always a snake bite. But like the tribe you're from, that could change. And you might eventually even join a like goth tribe, but you're still a snake bite.
That's okay. Maybe that's
Yeah.
where I was getting confused. Then.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Fair enough.
What was your question again? I had a better answer, but it snuck away. What was the exact question again?
We don't think very much, so that's up to you.
Okay, well, fuck it. Okay. All right. Well, any other thoughts there, Grim?
Honestly, I painted my face literally just for me to yell fucking "Wah!"
Worth it. Yeah, the
Yeah, so perfect.
dedication. Fuck yeah.
Anything for you
All
fellas. But if I have to say something, I see boys of green, red war trucks too.
It's beautiful.
Boomies go boom.
Beautiful. Just he's got the lighter.
Me and you. And I
Oh my
think
god.
to myself,
He's doing it.
what a wonderful
All right.
I would
Grim.
pinch my mustache, but it's kind of impeding my reach here.
Well, you go take care of yourself there. All right, Grim. Adios.
Thanks, Grim.
Adios.
This is excellent.
We got time for one more. Fuzz, calling you up. Welcome to the stage.
How's it going? Do not quite have the dedication that Chromaldus has, but I will give a resounding wow!
Wow.
Hey, no, don't worry, Fuzz. You're green with envy.
Yeah, a little that
Maxwell.
power claw,
Hey.
absolutely. That power claw is fantastic.
Crazy, eh?
It's just made me want to get that printer just buzzing for the next couple of days to make sure I have a power claw now.
Oh man, it's so good.
Yeah. So yeah, what are your thoughts on the old Gork and the Mork? Do you know the difference yet? Did we do a good job describing that?
I did know the difference, and then I forgot it because there's just
Damn. In one ear, out the other.
I mean, I'm just gonna forget. I think it's Mork is the brutal and Gork is the cunning. I forget. But
Other way.
well,
You're
like
lucky no
to be fair-
orcs are in the room, otherwise you get popped in the face there.
right, like I said, I was also listening while I was playing a Star Wars tabletop game on Discord, so I was trying to multitask.
Nice.
But I think that there's super interesting as just, you wouldn't necessarily think of the orcs having, especially like on the cunning side, like that sort of embodiment and any sort of like spiritual nature to them when you first get introduced to them and any sort of like lore in the hobby, and then diving deeper and getting into the fact that they do have their own warp gods, and that their warp gods might predate every other warp deity in Lorehammer lore or Warhammer lore, is just super interesting. And especially, I never thought about like the demon aspect of it that you brought up. Like, can they split themselves off and make demons? Are orcs their demons? And actually, like, it just kind of popped.
Maybe it's like insulting even for them to split their power off. Like, what's more insulting to an orc than to make himself like less powerful? So maybe even just on a conceptual level, they're just no demons for us. That makes us weaker.
Yeah, like that not necessarily for that reasoning, but that did pop into my head. Yeah, that like they wouldn't make a demon because they just don't see any use for it. Yeah, why would they? That makes perfect sense though. Why would they want to make themselves weaker? Why would they want to create something lesser to do their job for them when they could just go do it themselves?
Yeah. Don't take that scrap from the gods.
That's a good idea. I like that
Hard to
idea.
argue with that line of logic.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. Who's more cunning and brutal than Gork and Mork? Certainly nothing they're going to create.
Yeah.
Right.
Do you have like a specific thing that you like Gork and Mork to be? Like, are they corks? Are they actual warp-born entities? What's your kind of vibe?
I mean, I brought up the idea of orcs being the demons of Gork and Mork and starting with the croaks and everything, but I honestly think that I like them being created by the Krorks. So like the old ones created the Krorks to use in their war in heaven. And I like them just being some sort of like unintended like byproduct of that, because if I remember it, like the Krorks weren't necessarily supposed to be like a super psychic race. Like this Eldar were supposed to be the psychic inheritors of the old ones. And then the Krorks come along, and devolve into the Orks, and they just have this just crazy psychic potential, especially when they get into, their WAAAGHs. And so like maybe, Gork and Mork were created by the very first WAAAGH that ever existed. That energy made that first spark, however many millions and millions of years ago. And it's just been spiraling out of control, much like the Orks themselves.
Yeah. I do like that, where it's like, they crossed that threshold of the amount of orcs that were in one spot at one time, and then boom,
Right.
Gork and Mork are born. It's almost like the hive mind, which I kind of classify as like a warp entity. And the way it's born, where you get enough Tyranids together and you kind of create this thing, this creature.
Yeah, like the synapse just kind of comes out of there being enough Tyranids around.
Yeah.
So I got a question for you guys. Do you consider yourselves brutally cunning or cunningly brutal?
Go for it, Gerald.
Go for it, Gerald.
I like to think
Go
of
for it,
myself as I'm getting to it. I like to think of myself as more like Gork. He's so brutally cunning because he likes to just go in there and smash things. Now, unlike Bro Diddley over here, I'm more of a short in stature, so I gotta make up for that with my brutal rage and cunning and smashing and just a pure wah.
Yeah. So you guys are you flipped your personalities there and what you should be doing. Nice. Okay.
Yeah.
Well, then that
definitely
means
Mork, man. Cunningly brutal. Gotta be cunningly brutal.
Yeah.
Because it's no fun just being brutal. You gotta have a reason to be brutal. The cunning is making them realize that you are being extra brutal. That's just how it is. It's just how it is.
Yeah. And then I guess that leaves me in the old Gork and Mork camp, so I can be both. Is that legal?
We'll have to ask Lorehammer Legal if that's allowed.
Okay. I'll email them after the show.
Does this mean Mark is actually Gaz Cool Thracker?
Yeah. I would probably
which one
put
do you like more?
I would probably put myself as probably brutally cunning. I do agree, with the all that brutality of the best defense is a good offense, and want to have that like skill behind it to back it up. Yeah, that would be where I would put myself.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, it's fun either way, because either way you're hitting someone, so it's fine, really.
Exactly, you're just having a good time.
Like you're fine. Yeah. Well, cool episode. Any other thoughts there before we take off?
I will say the Bro Gorkily, that idea you had for Tuska with that the the Demon Crusade and all those little extra details that you would put in there, like the orcs making up their own anti-demon runes, which might be effective just because of the nature of orcs, and like painting themselves, and just it's almost terrifying, like the having a warband of orcs that is that single-minded of purpose, because they're not just going to fight demons because they like to fight demons, like you guys said. They're going to fight demons because that's what they do. Like they, in theory, might ignore other species worlds, ignore other fights because they're not demons. Don't care about fighting the humans, don't care about fighting the Tau, don't care about fighting the Eldar, whatever. Maybe not even care about fighting other orcs. We've got a line on some demons. That's where we're going to fly our giant, asteroid with rockets attached to it, smash into that demon world, and go fuck some shit up. Like, yeah, there's just, it brings in a lot of interesting ideas, like I said, with just that amount of like focus, and with like those aspects of Gork and Mork, like that cleverness that a lot of people don't associate with them.
The Green Knights of Mork.
Right. The Great Green Crusade. The first Green Crusade of Tuska.
Yeah. No, it's so cool for sure.
I've been on so many orc episodes now. Like I'm like, I just gotta do it. I already collect AOS orcs. Now I gotta collect 40k orcs. Why are every army I collect horde armies? I need to stop. I have a problem.
It's fine. You can use Merlin's Miniatures promo code Lorehammer, and when you buy whatever you want, they'll give you a little discount. Just go to Merlin's Miniatures, use their shit, hook you right up.
Yeah, actually, when I look at that, the Lorehammer code covers like at least shipping, like for people in the US and probably Canada because they're from the UK. They'd at least cover the shipping over here, if not a little bit more. So it's totally worth it.
Yeah, there you go. Help out the show. Help out that. Cool. Fuzz. Anything else?
No, I mean, just the normal join the Imperial Tide, join on the Discord, coming out with us. It's a time. I'll say that.
It's a time. Yeah.
Y'all have a good night.
All right. Adios.
Fuzz.
All right. We got to say goodbye to two more people. We got Orks. What are your closing thoughts here?
Well then, what's all this talk about an episode? Sounds like a lot of yakking. But I like if it's about fighting and smashing. I reckon this podcast is doing a good job spreading the word. Orcs need to know that Gork is all about big hits and strong punches. The WAAAGH needs to be loud and strong, just like me. Keeping the Orcs fired up, that's what I like. Just remember, it ain't about talking too much. It's about getting into the fighting and bashing. Gork says, let's get to it.
Wow.
This podcast fun, innit? Lots of talk, me and Gork, what we do, how we work. If it gets to Orcs thinking, it making clever plans, then I'm all for it. But don't forget, it's not just about talking. It's about messing with the enemy, making them trip up. I like the idea of spreading the word of cleverness and sneaky tactics. But remember, it's all about action in the end. Let's make them think before we hit them.
Oh, just beautiful. Wise, wise words. Truly religious fanatics. Just moral exemplars of the orc code you both are. Understanders of philosophy and knowledge. Cool. What a fun episode. I always love orc episodes, man. Like they're so goofy, so fun. They're classic, man.
The possibilities are just always endless with them.
Mhm.
Yeah.
That's what I like
Yeah,
about
yeah.
it.
I've said
Yeah,
multiple
like-
times before, Lorehammer has never had a bad orc episode. So
Yeah, like even
Are you
the concept of
insinuating
like
that there are bad Lorehammer episodes? Is that what you're saying? Right
hey
now,
yo,
Gerald?
there is. Go listen to the random button where I just hit the Lexicanum random button for an hour and you'll learn there are, in fact.
Oh
Some
no!
are.
Oh no!
Yeah.
I love it.
Oh, cool. Well, thanks everyone for listening. A lot of fun. If you want to come listen to more of me, you can go check out Lorehammer Listen to Lore podcast. I do homebrew lore where I read off your guys' lore, and it's a lot of fun.
And then if you want to hear about Warhammer Fantasies orcs, come on over to the Grimlore podcast. We talk about Warhammer Fantasy, and we actually just did an episode on Age of Sigmar. Very cool faction. If you know anything about steampunk dwarves, that's going to come out as of time of recording. That's supposed to come out tomorrow. So yeah,
Nice.
there you go.
Cool.
And if you guys want to see some cool pictures, just go follow my Instagram at dwarven.horde.minis.
Cool. Dwarven.horde.minis. You mostly do 40K stuff? Do you kind of branch out and
It's mostly 40K stuff on there. It's not a whole lot of dwarf stuff currently. It was more I was thinking about the idea of I was like, I don't have a pile of shame. I have a dwarven hoard of treasures.
yes. Okay, I get it. I like it. Yeah.
But I'm actually currently working on a dwarf army. I am working on some fire slayers that I got for a steal of a deal. I got like a 2,500 point fire slayers army for $200.
Whoa. Yeah.
That was
Okay.
in used condition. So $200 Canadian too. So that's like it's like $10 American.
Giving away. Fucking giving
Oh.
away.
So I'm gonna be doing some of those here. I'm just doing like a couple test models, figuring out my scheme, and then I'll probably start actually banging those out because I want to actually do an AOS league here in Saskatoon. So
Cool. Very
Fantastic.
cool. So what was that again? It was Dwarven Hold Minis?
it's Dwarven Ho, yeah, it's Dwarven Horde. So Dwarven.horde and HORDE .minis.
Cool. Perfect. Yeah, cool. Go check that out. And no Patreon members this Wednesday. You know, the episode between Tuesday and Wednesday, it's only a couple hours before I record between them, so no one really often doesn't sign up. But you could, and you could be the one person to do it. So definitely go do that between Tuesdays and Wednesdays. Thanks everyone for listening. And the next episode, I think we're jumping into Can and the White Scars. So going to be going on that like little 4-episode arc that we've kind of gotten used to. So going to be a lot of fun. I owned a motorbike myself, so right away I feel like a kindred spirit to the man. See you all on the next episode. Adios.
WAAAGH!